Am I the asshole for refusing to move in with my boyfriend to care for my 16-year-old cat in his final months? Throwaway, and I'm on mobile, sorry for the format. I've been dating my 24F boyfriend, 26M, for a bit over a year now, and he really wants me to move in with him. The problem? My cat. My cat is 16, and dying. The vet says it would be unwise to hope for anything past 6 months. I've had this cat since I was a child, he was there for me through everything. There are a few reasons I don't want to move. 1. Moving is really stressful for cats, and I don't want to cause any unneeded stress for my old boy. 2. My boyfriend has a fairly energetic Rottweiler. My cat has never been good with dogs, almost killed when he was 2 years old. We had to amputate his leg and it was so badly crushed and injured. I understand my boyfriend wants me to be close to him, I want that too, but is it really so much to ask for a few months for my cat to pass away? It hurts me so much that he keeps calling me unfair and not committed in this relationship I am. But my longest friend is dying, and I want him to be comfortable. He doesn't seem to grasp how important my cat is to me. He has never liked cats, and even made the joke, when he's gone I will finally be your number one man. I don't know how to handle this at all. Any advice is welcome. Comments. Comment 1. If he has a dog, how can he not understand what it's like to love an animal? Oop. He doesn't think cats actually have emotions or something. He's one of those people who thinks cats are evil and dogs are a saving grace, which was fine before. I understand not liking cats is almost as common as liking them. Comment 2. Je comprends qu'il pourrait ne pas aimer le chat lui-même mais pas pourquoi il ne comprend pas comment vous vous sentez à propos du chat. Comment 3. I don't think it's unreasonable. After 16 years the cat is part of the family. Of course you want to make his passing as easy and safe as possible. If he doesn't get it, frankly he sounds like a tool. Update, 1 days later. First off, let me say I'm still shaking, so if this is a rambled mess I am sorry. All your kind words from yesterday made me cry, thank you all so much. I thought I would give some backstory to how my BF and I met. It was through a support group, as I mentioned. Growing up, until age 7, I had a very abusive dad. When I was 7 he tried to kill my mother and I. Luckily the cops intervened and they took him away. My mom charged him and he got put away. When the trial was done, we moved, and my mom gave me Moo, don't judge the name, I was 8, from a local shelter. I didn't fit in at the new school, and Moo was the best thing in my life. Back to the support group. I shared my story, and my BF confronted me after saying he also had abusive parents growing up, and we bonded over our similar situations. I didn't realize how much control he had over me until recently. He convinced me to stop seeing my therapist. We also stopped going to group. He used to tell me what to wear, how to style my hair. It's very curly, and recently I've been straightening it because he would always say it looked better. A few hours ago, I invited him over for lunch and to talk. Luckily, Moo was in my room sleeping. I told him what you guys said, saying that if it was his dog he would be upset. He blew up. He told me that wasn't the point. The point was I wasn't committed to him, or didn't care about us. He started throwing things, a glass, some books I had lying about, and some picture frames. It was terrifying. I had never seen him this angry before, and I just reverted back to what I used to do as a kid. Curl up, cover yourself as much as you can, stay quiet. Bless my roommate, who came home during this fit. She had brought the security guard because as she was walking in she heard the shouting, items breaking. My BF was escorted out. As he left I just screamed, "Don't come back. I hope it sticks." I've blocked his number, and my landlady has been notified not to let him in, as have the guards. Next step is neighbors. I don't really know what to do from here. I emailed my therapist, hopefully she will let me come back. My mom is on the way over right now, and my roommate is with me too. I'm so terrified. I didn't realize how much control he had over me. I thought all his early behavior was just because he had clingy issues from his own upbringing. I'm going to have a bath, relax, let my hair go curly again, and cuddle my baby. I'm really glad Moo was in my room. Thank you all for the help. I didn't think any of this was wrong until you guys brought it up. I still love him, and feel bad for him. He had a shit upbringing too, and I'm sure he's messed up from it, but I'm going to try to move on. After my cat dies, I'm going to move out from this place, to somewhere he doesn't know about. Thank you all again. Edit for everyone who wants to see Moo. Copy from another comment. I don't want to be identified in case anyone I know or in the future knows finds this. That's why I made a throwaway, as I do have a regular Reddit account. Imagine this. A pretty big tomcat, mainly white with 3 huge black spots on his back, leg, and side of his head. Minus the back right leg, and yellow eyes. An 8-year-old me thought he looked like a cow, and cows moo, hence the name Moo Moo. He's pretty derpy, but he's mine. Edit 2. Move to tears again by all your comments. Thank you. I'm going to log off this account now, and hopefully never have a reason to use it again. Thank you all so much for the help, I love you all. Comments. Comment 1. As distressing as it must have been for you, I'm so glad he finally showed his true colors, but even more so that you were brave enough to end things for good. You're a strong woman, and getting back to therapy will make you stronger and more aware of the intentions of any future abusers who may want to prey on you because of what you've been through. BW. Curly hair is gorgeous. Seriously, wear your curls with pride. Comment 2. Sorry you had to find out he sucks that way op. Stick to your guns and don't let him back in, he is controlling and most likely could have become physical if not for your roommate coming. Don't let the sob stories from him get to you. Comment 3. Yep, he was trying to separate OP from Moo Moo because they always try to take away our support systems. He couldn't stand that there was anything you loved more than him. Good riddance and stay strong, OP. Comment 4. I'm pretty sure this comment will get lost among the others, but maybe you'll see it, and I think you need all the support right now, no matter how small. I'm sure it's hard to let him go and you still love him. It's not like you can fall out of love in a matter of seconds. But please, please, please stay strong and don't take him back under any circumstances. I'm sure you already know this, as you seem like an extremely bright and sensible lady, just maybe you need to read this in a weaker moment. Surround yourself with all the support you can, family, friends, therapy, take legal action if needed. I don't care how shit his upbringing was. It might be a reason to be abusive, but never an excuse. Don't let history repeat itself. Take care, cuddle your buddy. Oop. Thank you, my mom got here a while ago and she said the same thing. Don't end up like she did. It's scary how I almost went into the same cycle. I love him, but some of the things he screamed at me, I hate that cat, I'll kill him, amongst others, scared me. I could never expose my cat to that. I won't go back to someone who would hurt something so close to me. Update commenting in a Boru in the other sub, 6.5 years later. Hi everyone. This is kinda crazy. I was on my regular Reddit account, I am an avid follower of this subreddit, when I saw my own post on here. I thought I would give some updates. Moo Moo died around 4 months after this post. He was put down, since his quality of life was declining rapidly, and while he could have lived maybe another 3 or 4 months, I didn't want that for him. He was in the last stages of kidney disease, and needed so many drugs of subcutaneous hydration to just keep him going. I miss him every single day. I still have his ashes with me, and I make sure to keep him in a sunbeam on the window. That was his favorite thing. Regarding my ex, the embarrassing part of it is, I still felt so badly for him for so long. I saw a comment on the original post that said it sounded like I was just looking for validation that his behavior wasn't okay, and I think that's true. Besides controlling my hair, he also pretty much decided everything in our relationship. What we did together, what we ate, shows we watched. It seemed so small at the time, that he never wanted to go to the places I picked or listen to the music I liked. He always had a reason at first, but then eventually it was just because he didn't want to do those things. And for some reason I let that happen. I did try to go back to that therapist and the group, but even after I told her and them what happened, I felt unsafe being there. For the first few months, he would stake out my apartment, and I couldn't trust he wasn't also following me to therapy. Maybe stake out isn't the right word, but he would leave letters and packages and stuff outside my building, so I knew he was there. Could be there at any time. Cops were not helpful since he never made himself known to me, although my roommate swears she saw him a couple times across the street. Basically just said to be careful. My therapist and I moved to phone calls, for a while. I don't know if this will surprise anyone, but turns out XBF was into the no sugar. A lot of our fights I now think he was high for at least some of them, especially the last blow up. He ended up getting in a fight with some dudes at a bar and he was fucked up when booked. This was probably about a month or so after Moo Moo died. I broke my lease, which my roommate, who I am still friends with, was really nice about. I moved back in with my mom, lives in a different town, for a few months, before finding another job just one town over from her. This was her suggestion. She wanted to keep an eye on me and make sure I didn't let him back into my life. She was and is my rock to this day. He got out after only a few months for good behavior, and while he didn't know where I lived, I am extremely thankful for my mom. There are times when I would hear that his experience changed him, via PPL I knew, and I would think, maybe he has changed. I was so lonely without Moo Moo. My mom nipped those in the bud every time. She would ask me things like, even if you go back, what then? You get married and have kids? Do you think he would be a good father? It was sobering to think of what I experienced as a child being continued. Eventually I steeled myself with the help of a new therapist, suggested from my old one, and worked on my self-confidence a lot. About what I deserve. When COVID hit, I had a lot of time to kind of break down parts of my life I didn't before. I have tried being in relationships since, but there was this underlying feeling of stress in each one. About 2 years ago I figured out I think I am asexual. Sex was always so uncomfortable for me, even when it was physically enjoyable I never really wanted the act. I just assumed this was trauma and fear of intimacy. That is what most people and therapists had told me. I am currently in a relationship with a lovely person, NB, and we are both asexual. We do kiss, but we rarely ever move beyond that. With them, there is no expectation for more. They are also from a less than happy childhood. They were in the foster system, but that isn't my story to share, so I won't. Just know that I am happy. We have been together for a year, and they are so considerate and kind. They bring me flowers at least once a month, they make sure I can express myself, they encourage my interests and actually want to hear about them. Most of all, they love my curly hair, and they love cats. I never adopted another cat after Moo Moo. I think I was terrified for a long time that if I did, they could be used against me. My partner has 2 cats, who I love. We are currently trying to work out moving in together. My place has a better location, but theirs is larger. We've decided to try and find a completely new place together that we can both agree on, but the process for rentals right now is horrid. There have been 2 places so far that we applied to and didn't get. Anyway, my life is going great. I still have lots of trauma that I live with, but I know I can get back up when I fall. I have people I love, who also love me. I probably won't respond to any comments, and I'll most likely delete this account in a few days. I don't need it anymore. But before I did, I thought leaving one last update was called for. Thank you for all your kind words, and helping me find confidence to get out of that relationship. Much love to everyone. I let my unemployed sister stay for free, but after getting engaged, she blocked me, so I canceled my deal to help her fiancé with rent. All of this began around 2 weeks ago, when my sister's boyfriend proposed to her and invited her to move in with him. Then, earlier this week, she arranged an engagement party without inviting me. Things had already become strained between us, but this was the tipping point for me. We had a tremendous quarrel when I questioned her about not inviting me, especially because I had supported her and allowed her to live with me rent-free for the previous year. She informed me that an idiot like me was no help in the first place, and that she didn't want to remain in touch with me any longer since she had had enough of me. Of course, it was completely ungrateful and disrespectful. So I called off my little deal with her guy. Now she's constantly apologizing, but I don't need it. I wouldn't have had any second thoughts if it hadn't been for my mother. For perspective, Janet, my sister, lost her job as a copywriter after her firm announced major layoffs. She tried freelancing for a while, but it didn't pay well, and she eventually couldn't afford rent. She was kicked out of her flat and had to come to me. Previously, she and I had an acceptable relationship. We weren't particularly close, but I let her move in because I felt sorry for her. She was definitely going through a difficult time, and she needed all the aid she could get. Our mother lives far away with our brother, so she couldn't help, and I was Janet's only family member nearby. For the past year, I've let her remain with me without paying rent because my husband and I make enough money to cover it. She not only did not pay rent, but she also made no effort to help with home tasks or finances. We treated her like a child, and this is how she decided to repay me. Naturally, I was angry. I could tell she was doing better in the final few months since she began to spend more time with her pals. Despite this, she refused to take a job. She was either depleting her savings or spending the money our mother sent her as an allowance until she found something worth her time. I felt it was odd for a woman in her mid-20s to live like that. Since she was clearly no longer battling mentally, I began urging her to look for work. That led to a lot of arguments since she wanted me to get off her back and stop bothering her, whereas I thought she was wasting money. Our relationship deteriorated over time because she refused to listen to my advice, despite the fact that it was sound. Then last month, I discovered that I was pregnant. My husband and I decided she couldn't live with us any longer since it would be too much work, and we wanted to convert her room into a nursery. Fortunately, we did not need to have that conversation with her. Just a few days after I found out I was pregnant, Janet's boyfriend Caleb approached me and said he wanted help choosing a ring because he was about to propose. They had been together for 4 years. He had supported her through thick and thin, and he was a decent man. Janet hadn't moved in with him earlier because they worked in the same department and were laid off at the same time. He'd had a difficult year as well. However, a few months ago, he found a new job. He told me that during the first several months of the engagement, he wanted to live with his parents. Once he found an apartment he liked and saved enough money, he would move in and invite Janet to join him. His funds had suffered significantly because he was no longer living rent-free with his parents, as Janet did. Since I really wanted Janet to move out, I proposed that he find an apartment first, move in, and then propose. After that, he could invite Janet to live with him. That way, everything would go well. He was concerned about the expenses, but I promised him that I would pay Janet's half of the rent for the first few months until she found work. I devised this strategy because I desperately needed to leave the house before my second trimester began. Maybe it was a little sly, but I didn't want to jeopardize my already poor relationship with Janet by bringing up the unpleasant topic of her staying with us. This manner, everyone benefited, so I didn't give it much thought. Within a few weeks, Caleb had secured an apartment, and he and I had reached an agreement. Everything went precisely as I expected. Janet moved out just a few days after her engagement. However, once she had a ring on her finger and a place to stay, her attitude toward me shifted dramatically. I could sense something was wrong. Even then, I never dreamed she'd exclude me from her engagement party after everything I'd done for her. When I challenged her about it, she called me a fool and claimed that I had not been helpful at all. She stated that I had only put pressure on her in recent months, causing her undue anxiety, and that she was relieved to be gone. She wanted nothing to do with me anymore, so she blocked me. I was obviously irritated, so I called Caleb and informed him that I was canceling our little deal. Janet was obviously ungrateful, and I didn't need to worry about her anymore. She is an adult lady who can manage herself. She is not my child, so I do not have to feel terrible about this. This put Caleb in a difficult situation as well, but I couldn't care less at the time because I was so upset. A few days later, Janet unblocked me and began apologizing. Then, yesterday, my mother called and told me I was being really unreasonable. She claimed that what I had done was useless and weird. She informed me there was no need to manipulate Janet and Caleb only to get Janet out of my house. I could have simply sat her down and had an honest chat with her. Everything would have been plain. Perhaps I agree with that. I don't believe my mother was absolutely wrong. But, in my defense, Janet had already been quite difficult to cope with for the previous few months. I didn't want to add to my stress by attempting to have that talk since I knew Janet wouldn't take it well unless she already had somewhere to go. My mother also said that by pulling out of the transaction, I was causing unneeded difficulties for Caleb, who was absolutely blameless in the issue. However, I couldn't get myself to care about it either. My mother also stated it was embarrassing for our family, and I suppose she's correct. That is why I have been thinking about it so much. I'm torn. I don't want to back out of the transaction since that would make me a big jerk. But at the same time, I really don't want to help Janet, especially after what she said to me. She basically called me a stupid after I had done so much for her in the previous year. I'm in a huge quandary right now and desperately need some decent guidance. Am I wrong for pulling out of the deal and causing problems for my sister and her fiancé? Update 1. Thank you to everyone who reacted to my post. After much consideration, I decided to discuss it with Caleb. He is the one person I owe an explanation to in this situation. After all, he did everything I asked of him because he trusted me, and I don't want to leave him in a difficult situation. I informed him that I would continue to assist him financially, but that if Janet finds work, I would like all of the money returned. This is just a one-time favor for Janet, and I don't want to engage with her again. Even this contact was exclusively between Caleb and me. I didn't want him caught in the crossfire between Janet and myself. As I have stated, Caleb is a truly kind guy, and I don't think it's fair to leave him hanging, especially considering his financial position. He appeared relieved when I spoke with him on the phone. He informed me that he understood how furious I was, but he was grateful that I did not back out of the transaction, which would have left him in a terrible situation. He also encouraged me to make amends with Janet. But that's where I draw the line. I don't want anything to do with my family right now, including my mother. While my mother had a good point about how I could have simply spoken to Janet, told her the truth about my pregnancy, and asked her to leave, she fails to recognize that I had previously tried to be polite to Janet for a long period. Janet made things exceedingly difficult for me. Let's not forget that my mother was helping her by sending her a monthly allowance, despite my repeated warnings that this was preventing Janet from becoming independent. I cautioned her that her actions would ensure Janet never got a job or got back on her feet, but she ignored me. So I think I'm really a fool. Because, at the end of the day, I feel used by my family. Janet clearly utilized me for a rent-free place to live without contributing monetarily or assisting with tasks. My mother practically used me to support Janet while disregarding my sentiments. If she cared, she would have heeded my advice and encouraged Janet to seek a job rather than providing her with free money. She was not even enthusiastic about my pregnancy. Instead, she was more concerned with Janet's condition and did not congratulate me. Anyway, the basic line is that, while I feel horrible about what's going on with my family, I'm not going to let it interfere with my life. I'm embarking on a new path as a mother, and I'd like to start on a positive one. I do not want any negativity in my life at the moment. As a result, I have chosen to cut off all communication with my mother and sister. I'm not going to lie, it will be difficult. Aside from them, I just have my in-laws for my family. My father died in an accident when I was 7 years old, and his parents died shortly after that. We don't have much contact with his family, and I'm not close to any of my other relatives. It used to be just my mother, Janet, and I against the world. Janet and I had a close relationship as children. However, as we grew older, we became further apart. Recently, I believed we were reuniting, but then something happened. Now I think I'd be better off without them. Even though I'll be lonely, at least I won't be stressed. And even if I don't have my family with me, I have my husband, which is enough for me. Update 2. It's been 5 weeks since my last update, and my mother unexpectedly showed up today. I had the day off, so I spent it at home. I heard the doorbell ring just as I was about to leave work. I looked outside and saw my mother standing there. I was surprised because she normally prefers to stay in her hometown and dislikes traveling or spending overnight anywhere. She finds it unpleasant. Her last visit was short for one day to attend Janet's engagement party. She flew back home the next morning, so we didn't even get to meet. This time, she said that she had come because Janet wanted her to meet Caleb's parents in a more intimate environment, so they had a family meal. She'd traveled in just for it. Now that she knew I was pregnant, I suppose she felt compelled to pay me a visit rather than go immediately. She had been attempting to contact me on a regular basis over the last few weeks, but I had ignored her. However, now that she was standing directly outside my door, I couldn't pretend I hadn't heard the phone ring or that I was preoccupied. I had no choice but to let her inside. When we started talking, she apologized for her prior actions. However, she also felt that my behaviors were weird and needless. She said it was very typical of me to go behind someone's back and create plans only to get them out of my house when I could have had an honest chat with them. I had to explain to her that Janet and I had been having troubles for months and that I did not want to further the situation. Even then, I was trying to be a better person by avoiding drama. I had gone out of my way to assist Janet so that she did not find up in a situation where she had nowhere else to turn. That is why I had to take such precautions. She would have understood why I did this if she had checked on me as often as she did Janet. Clearly, she had no concept what things were like from my perspective. I did tell her that she was correct, as I had previously, and stated that despite our frequent fighting, I should have just informed Janet that I was pregnant and requested her to leave her room. She probably would have taken it well, and if she didn't, I should have taken my chances rather than gone out of my way to construct a living environment that favored her in order to prevent conflicts or drama, like a fool. At that time, my mother had the foresight not to say anything else and left it at that. She then moved the subject to my pregnancy, and we talked about it for a while. However, I was already getting irritated, so I was extremely dry with her. After a while, she assured me she understood why I was still unhappy with her, and that I had every right to be. However, she was the baby's grandmother and desperately wanted things to return to normal. She asked me to stop ignoring her because she wanted to stay in touch and see how my pregnancy was going. I told her I'd think about it, but right now, I just needed some space. She eventually left, and that was all. I'm not sure what to make of this conversation, but at least we got it out of the way. I'm not sure if I'll respond when she starts texting and calling again, but I might try. At the very least, I am not as upset as I was before, which is an improvement. Update 3. Hello, it's been 3 weeks since my previous update. My mother has consistently tried to contact me. I've been responding to her texts and returning her calls on and off, whenever I feel like it. I rarely answer, but I'm not entirely ignoring her like I used to. I'm still unhappy with how things turned out for my family, so I'm taking my time. She'll have to cope with it if she wants to maintain touch with her granddaughter, at least until the next grandchild arrives, if you get what I mean. Anyway, I believe the situation with my mother has marginally improved. However, my status with Janet has remained largely unchanged. We remain emotionally detached and refuse to interact with one another. I have not spoken to her since my last conversation with Caleb. Caleb did inform me that Janet has finally found work and will begin repaying me within the next few weeks. It's a relief because I had almost given up hope of seeing my money again. I'm not sure why it took her so long to get back on her feet, but I'm relieved it's finally happening. It's for her own good, and honestly, I'm just relieved that I won't have to get involved in this mess anymore. My baby is my primary priority right now. The pregnancy is going well, albeit morning sickness has already set in, which has been the most difficult challenge so far. Aside from that, I am quite delighted to become a mother. My husband, aware that I do not have a good relationship with my family right now, has gone above and above to keep me happy and distracted. His family has been tremendously supportive, particularly my mother-in-law. I consider myself really fortunate to have such a supportive mother-in-law. She has been coming over very frequently, taking care of me, making sure I don't overwork myself, and has even begun cooking for us. I can't begin to express how beneficial that has been. It makes me sad that my mother isn't doing anything for me other than attempting to stay in touch. But I suppose that's simply how she is. If Janet had been pregnant, I'm very sure my mother would have flown in and moved in with her. In that sense, I'm grateful that I'm not Janet, because I doubt I would have been able to compromise my privacy in that way. Update 4. Hello, it's been 2 weeks since my last report, and today I received my first payment from Janet. She messaged me that she had received her first paycheck a few days earlier and that she felt it was right to begin repaying me for all of the help and support I had provided her over the previous year when she was struggling. She also apologized for her past behavior and expressed her desire that we could become friends again eventually. I felt awkward and emotional after reading that. I thanked her and told her I desired the same thing, and that was all. There are still more payments to make, but I hope she does not send any more emotional messages like this. Honestly, they just make me feel horrible about everything that happened, which I don't need right now. I simply want to be happy. I want to appreciate this period in my life. I do not wish to linger on the past. Speaking of which, as my pregnancy is advancing, my mother called me earlier this week to see how I felt about her visiting every other weekend. She said she could take the bus and travel on alternating weekends to see me and help me. Flights would be prohibitively expensive for frequent travel, so the bus would have to suffice. It's only a 6-hour drive from her home to mine, so she claimed it wouldn't be too difficult. I considered it, but ultimately declined. First and foremost, no matter how much she wants to come see me and help, I know it would be extremely uncomfortable for her to travel in that manner owing to her back and knee problems. That's why she doesn't travel often, and when she does, she takes flights, even if they're only 45 minutes. I don't want to cause her any discomfort. That was one of my reasons for saying no. The other reason is that, while I appreciate the invitation, I know that if she comes over, she will want to remain with me now that I am pregnant. She usually stays in hotels because she enjoys the luxury, and it makes her trips feel like vacations. However, the situation has altered. I know she'll want to stay at my place, but I don't want to give up my privacy, especially with the baby on the way. Both my spouse and I work hard, and we rarely have time to see each other throughout the week. I'm attempting to finish up all of my work before leaving on maternity leave, and he's working extra hours for a raise. Weekends are all we have, and I do not want to waste them. However, I knew my mother really wanted to see me, so I devised another plan. I informed her that she could visit us on the last weekend of each month. My mother would no longer have to fly every other weekend and would be able to spend more time with us. We decided on this arrangement because it seemed to work for both of us. My husband and I would still have to miss one of our weekends, but since my mother was making an effort, I was willing to compromise. My mother-in-law agreed with this approach because, at the end of the day, family is vital. And, as much as I tried to hide it, it was clear that I missed being on good terms with my family. Of course, what had happened was unacceptable, and I had every right to be furious. But if they were making an attempt and I wanted to give them another chance, that was excellent for me as well. So, I believe it's a terrific idea, and I truly hope I can work things out with my mother. My sister's condition is still unresolved, but I don't mind. She appears to be doing well for herself, at least, I hope so, and I am too. Right now, these minor variances don't bother me. I just want to make sure the future is a positive one. Honestly, the only thing that matters to me right now is my baby. I'm going to do whatever makes me happy because, if I'm happy, my baby is happy, or so I've heard. LOL. Update 5. Hello, it's been a few months since my previous post, and I finally have time to write because I've been busy with my baby for the past few weeks. I had my baby 3 weeks ago, and she is a complete joy. She's brought everyone together, and I couldn't be happier. My mother and I continued with the arrangement we established in my previous report. She started visiting me on the final weekend of each month. However, in the days running up to my due date, she stayed with me, which was quite pleasant. She sincerely apologized to me. She recognized that she had not been a good mother to me and that she sincerely wanted to make amends, not just for her grandson, but because it was the proper thing to do. She also informed me that she loves Janet and me equally, but that in the last year, she had been a little biased because Janet had been struggling. Perhaps that's why she asked me to be gentler with her. However, she was unaware that she was treating me unfairly. She apologized for this as well. A long time has passed, and I have resolved to forgive her. We've agreed to work on our relationship and try to improve. Janet had been paying me back in installments, and she made her final payment last month. In the midst of it all, she hadn't sent any more emotional texts than she had the first time. However, after completing her final payment, she contacted me to express her want to discuss and work things out between us. She wished to apologize for what she had done. So I decided to invite her over. When she arrived, she very much broke down and apologized. She stated that she had been in a tough emotional state, which caused her to act out. She assured me that she, not I, had been the fool. She claimed she had been ungrateful and that I did not deserve anything that had transpired. She was overjoyed that I had agreed to talk to her. So, Janet and I have agreed to try to restore our relationship. Perhaps, in time, we will be as close as we were as children. Janet has been coming frequently since my daughter was born, and my daughter adores her Aunt Janet. This makes me happy. As I mentioned earlier, my baby has actually brought everyone together. Her birth seems to have healed everything. Almost everyone was there for me while I was in labor. In the delivery room, I had my husband, his family, and my own. That day will remain the most memorable of my life. My wife cheated, got pregnant, demanded divorce and alimony. I exposed her to her church, ruining her reputation and getting her expelled. Hello everyone, before we start today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's simple, free, and allows us to keep bringing you great content. Your support means everything to us. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thank you very much. Now, let's begin the video. So, since some of you have requested the complete tale, I guess I should start at the beginning. This is going to be long, but whatever. For the first 4 years of our marriage, my wife, I'll call her Jen, and I felt we were doing well. We met back in college. She was gorgeous as hell and seemed interested in my goals rather than just seeking a party person. I was working on my business degree while she studied education. We hit it off immediately. Following graduation, I embarked on my own consulting business. The first couple of years were sheer hell, working 80+ hour weeks, worrying about earning rent, the whole thing. But Jen was quite supportive back then. She would deliver me energy drinks at 2 a.m., give me encouraging speeches when clients ignored me while I was coding, all that girlfriend of the year stuff. She even recommended putting her teaching career on hold to help me build something amazing. It struck me as the most selfless act I'd ever witnessed. Looking back, I should have noticed the red flag waving directly in my face. We moved into a great house in a good neighborhood after my business started producing excellent money. Jen became obsessively connected with a local church. She began leading women's clubs, arranging charity activities, continuously posting Bible verses on Instagram, and preaching about family values and marriage sanctity. However, by the 4th year, things began to feel off. At first, there were little issues. She stopped inquiring about my day. Conversations that used to flow naturally were scripted, as if she was simply checking off boxes rather than genuinely listening. I'd ask easy questions like, "How was Bible study? Who showed up?" And she'd give vague, clipped responses, as if she was eager to shift the subject. What really surprised me was her sudden interest in our finances. Previously, she was pleased with having access to the credit cards and never inquired about the business. She suddenly wanted to know specific numbers. How much did we make last quarter? What's the business valued at now? Do we have assets I don't know about? At first, I assumed she was simply showing an interest, perhaps wanting to get further involved. Then I observed her taking pictures of the financial statements I had left out. One night, I discovered her looking through my office files while I was sleeping. "Just organizing," she said, although I noticed her reviewing documents on her phone. Things were gradually escalating, and I could feel the tension between us increasing by the day. Then her routine changed. Her routine became strange. Random late nights, weekend getaways that didn't add together. She'd leave the house wearing one clothing and return in another, dismissing it with a casual, "Oh, I spilled something." I noted one night how we hadn't spent much time together lately and how she seemed different. She rolled her eyes. "You're imagining things," she stated firmly, without looking at me. Then she suddenly became quite protective of her phone. She bought new, sexier clothes, but I never saw her wear them. She'd come back with claims that didn't fit, such as referencing restaurants in cities she'd never been to or having receipts for only one hotel room when she claimed to have gone with 4 ladies. I did not want to believe it. I assumed I was just worried as a result of my excessive workload. Then, one night, she arrived home late. Her hair was a little disheveled. Her makeup was smudgier than usual. And there was a faint, strange aroma on her, something harsh, like perfume. I didn't have any cologne. I asked casually at first. Long night? She hardly glanced at me as she kicked off her heels. Yeah, Bible study ran late. Then we grabbed dinner. You know how it is. Except, I didn't. Bible study used to stop at 8 p.m., but suddenly she was walking in after midnight as if it were usual. Smells like someone spilled cologne on you, I commented, watching her reaction. That's when her posture shifted, not guilty, but protective. She scoffed and crossed her arms. You're seriously paying attention now? Maybe if you weren't always at the office, you'd actually know what's going on in my life. That was not an answer, it was a deflection. And it worked just as she intended, shifting the blame onto me. I could have pushed, but I did not. Because I already knew how this would turn out. If I accused her, she'd cry, alter the story, and blame me for being paranoid and inattentive. I wasn't going to let her distort the narrative, so I got smart about it. I began monitoring credit card statements. I checked her location history after she left her iPad unlocked. Pro tip: women never sign out of their accounts. And, sure enough, every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, she spent exactly 2 to 3 hours at a different address in town. An apartment complex. On Thursday, I decided to leave work early. I parked across from the complex and waited. Sure enough, at 2 p.m., Jen drew back sharply. 10 minutes later, he parked next to her. Tall dude. Gym bro type. One of those tribal tattoos on his arm, so cliché. I snapped photos of them walking in together, all touchy-feely. Sitting in my car, seething, I saw my wife, the lady around whom I had constructed my entire world, walk into another man's apartment with the same flirtatious enthusiasm she used to have with me. My mind was screaming at me to storm up there and tear down the door. But I forced myself to stay put. Rage is loud. But what about revenge? Revenge is quiet. When she returned 2 hours later, I shot additional photos. I watched them kiss as if they had all the time in the world, and right then, something in me turned off. No more doubts. I had lost the woman I loved. The guy's name was Eric. I discovered this through her text conversations when she left her phone to shower one night. He worked at her church, possibly as a youth pastor. The irony was too thick. But I did not confront her immediately. Instead, I obtained more proof, including screenshots of texts, further images of their meetings, and hotel receipts from her purse. I even recorded a phone call in which she told Eric that she was about to leave me and that they would finally be together. The most painful thing, however, was not just the dishonesty. It was discovering how long she'd been plotting my ruin. I reviewed her texts with Eric, and what I saw made me literally nauseous. This wasn't a random event, she had been planning for months. I'm waiting for the right moment. He's too busy with work to notice anything. Once I file, I'll push for alimony. He won't see it coming. She wasn't simply going to leave me. She was using me to fund her new life. She and her boyfriend chuckled about how she'd make a nice landing while leaving me high and dry. That's when I realized she wasn't simply walking away. I was making certain she left with nothing. I met with my business accountant after hours and kept it casual. Thinking about restructuring a few things, I reported. Over the next several weeks, I made certain financial decisions, including prepaying my office lease for a year, paying down business debts faster, and shifting my salary so that more money stayed in the firm rather than displaying as personal income. I invested in new equipment which I knew I'd need soon but didn't technically need right now. On paper, it appeared like my business was controlling cash flow. Nothing suspicious, just routine operations that, strangely, made me appear a lot less liquid. At the same time, I created a second personal account with another bank and began moving tiny amounts. Nothing crazy, just enough to make a cushion that she wouldn't have access to. Everything was legal and properly documented. I wasn't hiding money. I was simply making sure she didn't get more than she deserved. And then, unexpectedly, she did me a favor. On a random Tuesday, she decided to blow it all up herself. When I got home from work, she was sitting on our couch with this bizarre, pleased expression on her face. "Mike," she said in a phony kind tone. "We need to talk." I knew what was about to happen but pretended not to know. "What's up?" "I'm pregnant." We hadn't been dating in months, so unless she was carrying baby Jesus 2.0, this wasn't mine. Before I could respond, she twisted the knife. "But it's not yours. I've been seeing someone else. I want a divorce." She stated it as if she were ordering takeout. "There is no guilt. Without hesitation. 5 years of marriage, thrown away like an expired coupon. I could feel the wrath rising beneath my skin, and my hands flexed at my sides. Every instinct told me to throw the entire folder of evidence in her face, drag her through the mud right then and there. But then it struck me. It was perfect. She had no idea. No idea I already knew. No idea I had been observing, documenting, and waiting. She believed she was in control. She believed she was the one who ended things. I gave a lazy smirk. I noticed the spark of confusion in her eyes. She was waiting for me to explode, beg, and ask who. But I sat there, quiet as always. She doubled down. And just so you know, you'll still be paying me alimony. I gave up my career for you, so you owe me. I locked eyes with her. Jen, I commented. Did you really think I wouldn't know about Eric? Her face lost its color. I chuckled. Tuesdays and Thursdays, right? 2 to 3 hours. Same apartment complex. Same parking spot. You didn't even try to mix it up. You really thought I was that stupid? She stiffened, her jaw tightened. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, come on. I leaned back and stretched my arms across the back of the couch as if I had all the time in the world. Bible study runs late, huh? That must be one hell of a lesson plan if it requires lingerie in a hotel room, I told myself. And Eric, real winner you picked there. Youth pastor, huh? Wonder how his congregation would feel about him knocking up a married woman while preaching family values. She was now completely panicked. She sat up taller, her gaze darting around as if she were looking for an exit. How long were you going to play with me, Jen? I inquired, tilting my head. You and your little boy toy were waiting for the right moment, right? Planning to milk me dry before you ran off together? What was it you said? He won't see it coming? Her mouth opened and closed like a fish panting for oxygen. I did not let her recover. I stood up. Let me make something very clear. You are not walking away from this as the winner. You are not taking a damn thing from me that I don't let you have. She attempted to recover, disguising her dread with false assurance. It's the law, Mike. You can fight it all you want, but you'll lose. I gave her the smuggest smile I'd ever given someone in my life. If you say so, I answered simply. She felt she was hitting me with the ultimate power move. But, honestly, she saved me the work. All I had to do was smile and make her believe she was in control. Meanwhile, I had already moved 5 steps ahead. The next 2 weeks were bizarre. Jen moved out practically immediately, straight into Eric's place. She filed for divorce, claiming irreconcilable differences. Fancy legalese for I want to bang other dudes without feeling bad about it. I met with a group of lawyers. The first 3 essentially informed me I was screwed. No-fault divorce state, was their favorite phrase. Apparently, the fact that my wife was banging the youth pastor and was knocked up by him didn't matter in court. But I kept seeking until I found an attorney, let's call him Paul, who didn't sugarcoat the situation. Look, man, I'm not going to lie to you, he told you. You're probably going to have to pay her something, but we can try to minimize the damage. I then showed Paul my financial statements. He raised an eyebrow. Interesting timing on some of these business expenses and restructuring, he commented, looking at me. He didn't say anything else. He couldn't legally advise me to hide assets, but I could sense he knew what I'd done. Well, this might help reduce the alimony calculation somewhat, but in this state, you're still looking at significant payments. That is when the wheels started turning. The courts may not care about her cheating, but her holier-than-thou church cronies will. I chose to remain cool during the divorce proceedings. Let her believe she was winning. Give her only enough rope to hang herself. Court day was weird. I arrived in my nicest suit. Jen arrived with her pricey lawyer, dressed modestly, as if she were auditioning for Sister Wives. It was almost funny how false the act was. Before we even started, the judge appeared to be extremely bored. Jen's lawyer spoke first, spewing rubbish about how she gave up her bright profession to support me, how she managed our home while I established my business, and how she deserved compensation for her contributions to the marriage. Then it was our turn. My lawyer provided the evidence, her adultery, the pregnancy, and the fact that she was already living with Eric. Her attorney stood up. Your Honor, let's not forget that we are in a no-fault state. He stated it so smugly, as if those 3 words erased everything she had accomplished. While my client deeply regrets that her marriage did not work out, the law is clear. Marital misconduct is not a factor in determining spousal support. What is relevant is the financial disparity between these 2 parties. Hearing how carelessly they discarded all she had done made me want to tear the entire courtroom apart. She cheated. She lied. She became pregnant with another man's child. and I was still supposed to pay her for leaving me. My lawyer pushed back, setting out all of the information again, highlighting how she wasn't simply leaving a marriage, but also establishing a financial safety net while living with someone else. But the judge only sighed, waiting for us to finish. When it was time for the ruling, he cleared his throat and lowered the hammer. While the court acknowledges Mr. Walker's concerns regarding his wife's infidelity, the law in this state is clear. Spousal misconduct is not a factor in determining alimony. Jen sneered at me from across the room. The judge proceeded. Given Mrs. Walker's financial dependence during the marriage and her current unemployment status, the court finds that she is entitled to spousal support. Mr. Walker will pay $4,500 monthly for a period of 4 years or until Mrs. Walker remarries. $4,500 every month for 4 years, to the woman who cheated on me while carrying another man's child. I felt as if I were taking wild medicines. But fortunately, my financial decisions had paid off. Sort of. Rather than being left with a $6,000 monthly payment, the judge reduced it to $4,500. Not ideal, but better than nothing. What is the best part? Jen and her lawyer had no idea about the money I still had tucked away. Or that my business would miraculously recover once this was all over. Jen couldn't help but appear smug as we walked out of court. Told you, she said quietly as we passed. Should have just agreed to my terms from the beginning. Then she had the audacity to phone Eric right in front of me. Baby, it's done, we won, she giggled like a teen. He has to pay. I told you the judge wouldn't care about the other stuff. I said nothing. Just watched her walk away, believing she had pulled off the ultimate deception. But the game was only getting started. I paid the first alimony check on time. I did not complain. Did not raise a fuss. Even sent a courteous email. Payment sent, please confirm the receipt? Jen appeared surprised. She undoubtedly expected me to be bitter, fight, and give her more ammunition. Instead, I played the ideal ex-husband, polite, timely with payments, aloof but not aggressive. She had no idea what was coming. Jen was more than simply a Harvest Community Church member. She was also their poster child. She led the women's ministry. She organized marriage retreats. She stood on stage throughout services, discussing God's plan for holy matrimony. Her father was a deacon. Her mother ran Sunday school. The entire family portrayed a wonderful Christian image. And I knew they'd throw her under the bus the moment they discovered who she truly was. I had collected everything. DNA testing results. Time-stamped images of her and Eric. Provide screenshots of their explicit texts. Hotel receipts. She even recorded herself insulting her religious mates for being uptight prudes. That one was especially juicy. I put everything in a neat professional folder and attached a cover letter that was really courteous and formal. To the elders at Harvest Community Church, I regret bringing this to your attention, but as a fellow Christian, I believe it is my responsibility. My ex-wife, Jennifer Walker, who oversees multiple ministries in your church, has been engaging in behavior that defies your church's principles. I've given documentation of her infidelity, which began during our marriage and resulted in a pregnancy that isn't mine, as proved by DNA testing. Jennifer is now living with this man and receiving considerable alimony from me. I'm sharing this not out of spite, but out of concern for the integrity of your ministry. Respectfully, Michael Walker. I dropped off the box early Sunday morning, when no one was present. Then I returned home and waited for the storm to hit. The Sunday after I sent my small care box, my phone blew up. Text messages from common church friends. Dude, WTF did you do? Pastor just called an emergency elder meeting before service. Jen is losing it. I simply turned off my phone and went back to sleep. It felt fantastic, not going to lie. Later that afternoon, I received a voicemail from Jen. She was shouting so loudly that I had to hold the phone away from my ear. You absolute piece of, how could you do this to me? They kicked me out of the women's ministry. My dad won't even look at me. You've ruined everything. I deleted it without phoning back. I don't need that negativity in my life. More messages arrived throughout the week, each more urgent than the last. Her church friends ignored her. Her parents were taking time to pray about the matter, which is church talk for we're disappointed in you. The Christian school where she volunteered begged her not to return. Even Eric was getting cold feet. Apparently, he did not sign up for all of this turmoil. He thought he was receiving a lovely woman and a solid alimony payment. Instead, he became a social outcast, with a baby on the way and a lot of baggage. By Friday, he had kicked her out of his flat. So much for pure love, right? Jen was summoned to a formal disciplinary hearing with the church elders 1 week after I dropped my evidence. I know because she called me, sobbing. "Mike, please, they're going to publicly discipline me," she screamed. "Do you know what that means? They'll announce it to the entire congregation. Everyone will know." "They already know, Jen," I replied bluntly. "That's kind of how church gossip works. My dad might lose his position over this. My family has been at Harvest for 3 generations. Should have thought about that before you fucked the youth pastor." She fell silent for a second. Then, in a soft voice, "He's not talking to me anymore." "Who? Your dad?" "No. Eric. He said this is too much drama, that I misled him about the divorce being clean and simple." I couldn't help laughing. "So your soulmate bailed the second things got tough? Shocking. I have nowhere to go, Mike. My parents won't let me stay with them. None of my friends are returning my calls. Sounds like a personal problem. Can I come home? Just until I figure things out." This woman has an incredible amount of courage. "It's not your home anymore, Jen. You gave that up when you decided to cheat." She began crying again, big, theatrical sobs. "What am I supposed to do? Get a hotel. You've got alimony money coming in, figure it out." Then I hung up. Cold? Maybe. But after what she pulled, my sympathy tank was completely empty. The church hearing took place Wednesday night. By Thursday morning, the news had spread throughout the neighborhood. Jen had been formally identified as an adulteress and dismissed from all church responsibilities. The preacher even preached an entire sermon about the sacredness of marriage and the consequences of sin, never mentioning Jen specifically but making it abundantly clear who he was referring to. Her parents took a break from church leadership. Her sister postponed her wedding, which was due to take place at Harvest. The entire family was essentially in exile. And Eric? He'd already requested a transfer to another church site in a faraway state, leaving Jen pregnant and alone. I remained on the sidelines throughout. I did not have to lift a finger. The community she admired most had done all of the difficult lifting for me. Small religious communities are tied to everything. Jen's church collapse set off a chain reaction that I could not have predicted better. First, the private Christian school where she worked part-time experienced budget constraints and canceled her position. The principal couldn't even look her in the eyes when he told her. Then, her volunteer gigs began to dry up. The Crisis Pregnancy Center, where she counseled young women, determined that her current circumstances made her a bad role model. The organization where she conducted donation drives informed her that they are restructuring their volunteer program. Every aspect of her identity was gradually chipped away. And I just kept paying the alimony check every month, on schedule. 3 weeks after the church controversy surfaced, I received a text from our former neighbor. "Jen's living in her car in the Walmart parking lot." I did not respond. But later that night, I drove past. Sure enough, Hero Honda was parked in the far corner of the lot. I could see her silhouette in the driver's seat, lit by her phone screen. The following day, she called me again. "I lost my job," she explained. Her voice was flat, no tears this time, just a hollow defeat. "That sucks. The baby's due in 5 months. No one will hire me. My parents still won't talk to me." I said nothing. "I've been sleeping in my car," she eventually acknowledged. "I can't afford both a car payment and an apartment on just the alimony. Sounds like poor financial planning." She breathed sharply. "Is this what you wanted? To see me completely destroyed?" I considered it for a second. "You know what? Yeah. Pretty much. I was stupid. I made a mistake. I never meant to hurt you." I shut her off. "I don't care." She swallowed back a sob. I just wanted to say I'm sorry." I smirked. "Cool, good luck with your new life." And that's when I decided to play my last card. "It's time to terminate this on my terms." "Actually," I added, keeping my tone casual, "I might have a solution that works for both of us." "What kind of solution?" Jen inquired, suddenly attentive. I could almost sense the anguish in her voice. "I'm getting tired of writing these monthly checks," I added casually. "And my business is expanding. I'm looking at opening an office in Singapore. Might move there for a while." "What does that have to do with me?" "Well, international alimony enforcement is complicated." I waited to let it sink in. "And I've been talking to a new lawyer who thinks we might have grounds to revisit the settlement, based on some creative interpretations of the law." Of course, that was complete crap. But Jen didn't realize it, and she was in no position to dispute me. "What are you saying?" she inquired. Her voice sounded panicked. "I'm saying I'd like to buy you out. One lump sum payment instead of monthly alimony for the next 4 years. She remained silent as she considered the situation. How much? She finally inquired. $90,000. Cash. Tax-free. You sign a document releasing me from all future obligations, and the money's yours today. Jen had no idea I could afford that lump sum simply. The actions I made earlier had saved a large portion of my money, and my business was already recovering. She and her lawyer never discovered half of what I had. To her, $90,000 felt like a lifeline, but in reality, it was less than half of what I'd give her over the entire alimony period. A huge reduction. However, for someone living in their car, pregnant and broke, that probably sounded like winning the lottery. I don't know, she said. My lawyer said. Your lawyer isn't sleeping in a Walmart parking lot, I told him. And this offer expires in 24 hours. After that, I start the process to challenge the alimony ruling, and you get nothing while we battle it out in court for the next year or two. More silence. I could almost hear the wheels moving in her mind. Can I think about it? Sure, you've got until this time tomorrow. Then, I'm moving forward with the challenge. I hung up without waiting for an answer. She called again 2 hours later. I'll take it, she replied gently. Smart choice. I'll have the paperwork ready in the morning. Meet me at my lawyer's office at 9 a.m. Mike. Her voice sounded tiny. Thank you? I nearly laughed. Don't thank me, Jen. This isn't mercy. It's business. The following morning, she arrived at the lawyer's office looking like pure hell. She had dark circles under her eyes, her hair was unkempt, and she was dressed in the same clothes I had seen through the car window. My lawyer had the documentation ready, a full release of all future alimony obligations in exchange for a one-time payment. I had already prepared the cashier's check. Jen had barely read the contracts before signing. When my lawyer slid the check across the table, her hands trembled as she took it. So, that's it? She inquired. We're done? I nodded. Completely done. I don't ever want to hear from you again. She appeared to want to say something more, but instead she simply nodded and walked out. As the door shut behind her, my lawyer shook his head. You know, most guys in your position wouldn't have offered her anything. I informed him, it was worth $90,000 to be free of her forever. And I intended it. The monthly payments didn't damage me financially, but they were a continual reminder of how she had duped me. I was now entirely cut loose. I'm free to move on, without her shadow hanging over me. Besides, I knew Jen. She'd spend that money in 6 months, tops. Then she would have nothing. No alimony. No job prospects. No backup plan. Meanwhile, I would be establishing my empire, living my best life, and never looking back. Around 6 months later, I ran into her at a gas station. It wasn't planned, just one of those random occurrences. She appeared harsh. Still pregnant, or possibly pregnant again. I didn't ask or care. She was driving a beat-up old Civic, not the lovely automobile she had during our marriage. When she spotted me filling up my new BMW, she froze, like a deer in headlights. I nodded to her simply to be polite. She walked over with hesitation. There was awkward pause, and she said, "How are you?" I shrugged. "Business is good, life is good." She nodded and looked down at her feet. That's good." More uneasy silence. "The money's gone," she finally said. "I had to pay off debt, and the rest went to rent and food." I simply gazed at her. "Not my problem." "I know, I don't know why I'm telling you this." I finished pumping gasoline. "Well, good luck with everything." I began to get back into my car, but she spoke again. "I'm sorry, Mike, for everything. I really am." I gazed at her for a long time. Was it satisfying to watch her like this? Honestly, not as much as I expected. I didn't feel bad for her though. Too little, too late, Jen. Then I got into my car and drove away. Have not seen her since. Things for me have been going great. I met this lovely woman, she is incredible. She has her own marketing agency, works hard, plays hard, and does not play games or pull any BS. We moved in together 3 months ago. There's no urgency to marry again. Once bitten, twice shy and all that. But really, I could see it happening with her someday. She's the real deal. I tried not to get involved in Jen's affairs, but knowledge spreads quickly in a small town like this. Furthermore, we still have some mutual acquaintances who periodically send information my way. How much did I give her? $90,000. Gone in 4 months. Apparently, she used some to pay off credit card debt I had no idea about, bought a cheap apartment, and blew away the rest trying to maintain her lifestyle rather than adapting to her new circumstances. Jen's style is classic. I was never able to budget effectively. She had the baby, a boy. Eric is legally obligated to pay child support, but from what I've heard, he's a deadbeat who consistently falls behind. As previously said, he relocated to Ohio and has little to no contact with the child. I guess his call to youth ministry didn't extend to his own children. Shocking. Jen attempted to continue her teaching career, but her reputation followed her. She refused to attend any Christian school. She lacked current experience, which public schools preferred. Last I heard, she was working in a call center, earning little more than the minimum wage. What is the actual karma? What happened to her family? Her parents eventually forgiven her after 8 months of avoiding her, but their relationship is still tense. They occasionally assist with the infant, but they are constantly making comments about horrible life choices and dealing with the consequences. Her sister keeps her distance, clearly concerned that Jen's reputation may impact her own standing in the church. Jen attempted to rejoin the church community, but it did not go well. Although she can attend services, she is barred from all leadership positions indefinitely. She sits in the back and exits immediately after the service ends. No longer women's ministry, no more marital retreats, no change in social position. The ultimate irony. A common friend informed me that she has been telling people she made a mistake and should have worked on her marriage. Too late. As for me, I am doing better than ever. Business is thriving, the relationship is stable. I'm finally doing things I never had time for. I received my pilot's license. I took up mountain riding. I've even begun learning guitar. Lesson learned? Sometimes the worst things that happen to you result in the best version of your life. You simply have to be willing to burn the bridges that must be burned, and never look back. So I suppose that's it. I probably won't post an update on this whole situation because, honestly, I'm not thinking about Jen much these days. I have better things to focus on. Oh, and one last thought for anyone going through something similar: record everything. Capture screenshots. Save text. Gather evidence. It may not be useful in court, no-fault divorce laws and all, but knowledge is power. And you never know when you might need that power. Goodbye, Reddit. My parents wanted me to have a secret wedding to avoid hurting my selfish sister, but I refused and cut ties with them. I, 27, female, recently got engaged to my longtime boyfriend Jonathan, and I couldn't be happier. I told my parents last week, and while they sounded thrilled and congratulated me, I had a feeling something was off. But I didn't think much about it. They called yesterday to say they'd be able to attend for no more than an hour. Furthermore, they required that I marry in secret and keep the news from everyone. I couldn't believe what they were asking me to do until they explained the rationale. My younger sister Kelly, 24, female, is a brat. I know people say this about their sisters when they're younger, but we're both adults, and she's still a spoiled brat. We had not spoken in the past 3 years. She couldn't abide anyone else being the center of attention, even for a second, and my parents did nothing to discourage her attention-seeking behavior. I ultimately cut her off when, on my 25th birthday, she got drunk and made a scene in front of all my friends. I could not have invited her, but my parents persuaded me, and it was easier to give in than to argue with them. She screamed at me about how I was a loser and would always be, and how I could never compare to her. She did this in front of all of my friends, and if they hadn't intervened, she would have thrown her drink in my face. That was the last time we communicated before I blocked her on all of my social media accounts and stopped contacting her. My parents weren't happy, but I couldn't take it any longer. I had spent my entire youth trying to get others to notice me, but Kelly made sure that didn't happen. I was done living under her shadow. I had already moved out of my parents' house, so I was able to cut her off, and that was the last I heard from her. My parents attempted to persuade me to attend her wedding last year, but I wasn't interested at all. I'm glad I didn't go since the guy she was marrying, the alleged love of her life, was my high school lover. He dumped me the night before prom after Kelly asked him out. She seemed to be completely innocent, but I knew the truth. I cried for hours about it. Kelly disliked me. But, yes, that was Kelly. She recently divorced her husband after he cheated on her with his secretary for about 3 months. For the time being, everything is kept under wraps, but people will ultimately find out. She had an expensive wedding, which my parents paid for, something they will never do for me. My parents now want me to make my wedding low-key since they don't want to disturb my sister's peace at such a tough moment in her life. My father even refused to walk me down the aisle because he wanted to be present for Kelly and proposed that we postpone the wedding. I couldn't believe what they were asking of me, and I still don't. They just kept going on about how I should keep my wedding a secret for Kelly's sake and avoid making a big deal out of it so as not to hurt her. I was speechless, so I hung up without saying anything. Honestly, I had nothing to say to them. I suppose I should have known that when it came down to it, my parents would always choose Kelly above me. I just couldn't believe my parents weren't there for me on what should have been the happiest day of my life. It's been a few days since I last spoke with my parents, and they've been texting and calling me nonstop, begging me to stop sending wedding invites to our family. They were scared that if I sent them out, my sister would find out about my wedding, and they did not want her to be hurt. I finally broke down and contacted them back to inform them that they were not welcome to my wedding either. I told them I was tired of being their second choice and that I no longer wanted them in my life. Needless to say, they did not take it well. My mother instantly began recounting all of the things they had done for me, reminding me that I owed them. So I told her that they had just done the bare minimum for me while consistently going above and beyond for Kelly. They never truly cared about me, and they never will, not in the same way that they cared about Kelly. I eventually accepted it. I assured them that no matter what, I was still going to send out invites to all of our family in a few days, and there was nothing they could say or do to stop it. The argument escalated from there. My parents began speaking negative things about me, emphasizing that they were correct in supporting Kelly since I was a waste of time and money. They even claimed I should have been booted out of high school for trying to steal Kelly's boyfriend. Yes, that is the tale Kelly told them. They then threatened to spread the word about what a terrible person I was, accusing me of rubbing Kelly's wedding in her face. They promised me that they would do everything in their power to prevent people from attending my wedding. Have I gone too far? Am I the bad one for not inviting them? They reacted horribly, yet they are still my parents. Update 1. It's been a few days since I spoke with my parents. I awoke this morning to a text from Kelly asking to meet me. Obviously, I'm skeptical about what this implies, especially because we haven't spoken in 3 years and this is an unusual moment for her to seek out. I texted her back, explaining that I was extremely busy and couldn't see her, and that whatever she needed to say could be communicated via text. But she insisted on talking in person. I'm pretty perplexed right now. Update 2. I did meet her. I know most people told me not to, but I couldn't ignore it. And honestly, I'm glad I went. She has changed. A lot. Like, seriously. She started by apologizing to me, and I could tell she really meant it. There were tears in her eyes. She claimed she sincerely apologized for what she had done to me and hoped she could take it all back. It was surreal. I never expected to hear those remarks from Kelly of all people. In addition, I had a better understanding of my parents. Apparently, they were the ones who instilled in Kelly the belief that she needed to outperform me in every aspect if she wanted to be their favorite. She clarified that this was not an apology for what she had done, but rather an explanation. And it really did explain a lot of things. My parents informed her that the boy I was dating was too good to be with me and needed someone better, like her. That's why she pursued him in the first place. I was devastated to discover that I had been blaming my sister for everything that had gone wrong between me and my parents, when it was actually the other way around. My parents had wrecked not only my childhood self-esteem, but also the potential for a healthy relationship between my sister and myself. Both of us ended up crying at the cafe. It was a little awkward, but well worth it. We hugged it out. And now she's a bridesmaid too. She was quite grateful since it would take her mind off the divorce and everything else. I can't wait to see how my folks respond to this. Update 3. I'm a married woman. I realize this update is long overdue, but I've been so busy with the wedding that I couldn't find time to publish. The wedding was all Jonathan and I had hoped for, and I could not have been happier. And no, my parents did not attend. However, they attempted to ruin it by informing all of my relatives that I was a terrible guy and that this marriage was a ruse to bring my sister down. Fortunately, I didn't have to say anything in my defense because Kelly had already cleared everything up. She made a big post and shared it on social media for all of our relatives to see. She described how our parents were to blame for constantly putting us against each other, resulting in this nasty rivalry between us. Of course, Mom and Dad were upset, but there wasn't much they could do but yell at us over the phone, since both of us had already cut off contact with them. So our relatives did come to our wedding. In fact, many of them assured us we had made the proper decision by removing our parents from our life. Most of them had done the same, because what my parents did was genuinely wrong. Kelly and I are gently rebuilding our friendship and making up for missed time. Jonathan, who has been my rock through everything, is likewise delighted now. I don't talk to my parents anymore since they'd never miss an occasion to criticize him either. Basically, we're all better off now that we're not talking to my toxic parents, and I am glad I chopped them off. They do not deserve me. They do not deserve Kelly. I'm finally pleased now. Comments from others. NTA, your parents are insane. I can't believe somebody would put their own girls through this. Seriously, this was messed up. I feel sorry for both you and your sister. Your folks really are the worst. It's good for you that you avoided interaction. OP and Kelly deserve better. Best wishes to you and Jonathan. Wow, that was something? I remember a friend whose parents were continually putting her and her brother against one another. Even they ended up excluding their parents from their lives. This should be a message to all toxic parents. Do not force your children to compete. NTA. I hope you and Kelly are happy right now, OP. You should explore treatment to undo who knows how many years of damage. Good luck to you and Jonathan. Sending you tons of love. I love cooking, but my wife always criticizes my food and eats frozen meals. When I stopped cooking, she got angry and manipulated me. I, 39 million, have been married to my wife, Jennifer, 37 feet, for 8 years. We have 2 children. I work full-time, and Jennifer is a SAHM. She's a fantastic mother, but she refuses to cook, which is fine. I love cooking. My father was a chef, and I worked as a line cook for years. Cooking is my passion. Everyone loves my food, except Jennifer. She constantly criticizes it. Too salty. Too much pepper. Undercooked. She never appreciates the effort I put in, and worst of all, after complaining, she'll heat up some disgusting microwave meal like a Hot Pocket. Last Wednesday, I made Salisbury steaks with mushroom gravy, cream cheese mashed potatoes, and roasted asparagus. When I placed her plate in front of her, she grimaced, took the tiniest bite, then made a dramatic gagging sound, threw her fork down, and went to heat up a microwave burrito. I was livid but said nothing in front of our kids. The next day, I made teriyaki bowls with broccoli. When Jennifer sat down expecting her plate, I simply told her, "I'm done cooking for you." She was shocked. I told her it was a waste of food and effort since she clearly hates my cooking. Jennifer was furious. She said I should try harder, but I think she should just stick to her beloved microwave meals. Did I escalate things too much? Update, February 27, 2025. I didn't expect to update, but things have escalated in ways I never imagined. After refusing to cook for Jennifer, the tension in our house became unbearable. At first, she thought I was bluffing. She would sit at the dinner table, waiting for her plate, only to realize I had only prepared meals for myself and the kids. She would get up, furious, slamming cabinets and muttering under her breath as she made herself a sad frozen meal. Then the real games began. Jennifer started making passive-aggressive comments in front of the kids. "I guess your dad doesn't love me enough to cook for me anymore." Or, when I made a particularly delicious meal, "Wow, I wish I had a husband who actually cared about my tastes." She even went so far as to tell my oldest son that I was being mean to her. "Mommy doesn't get dinner because Daddy decided he doesn't care about her anymore." That one made me see red. I sat her down and told her to stop manipulating the kids, but she played innocent. "I'm just telling them the truth. You refuse to cook for me, so now I don't eat." The next week, I caught her throwing away an entire tray of food I made for the kids while they were in the other room. When I confronted her, she shrugged. "Maybe you should have cooked it better." That was the breaking point. I started noticing patterns I hadn't seen before. It wasn't just my cooking. Jennifer was critical of everything I did. When I walked slightly pigeon-toed, a condition I've had since childhood, she rolled her eyes and said, "Why don't you just walk normally?" When I decorated my home office, she constantly wrinkled her nose in disgust. "Why do you like such ugly colors?" When I did laundry, she hovered behind me, correcting every little thing. This from a woman who once destroyed a $1,500 suit of mine because she thought bleach was a universal stain remover. I started keeping track of the criticisms. In 1 week, she made over 50 negative comments about things I did. So, I finally sat her down to talk. I told her I was exhausted by her constant negativity, that I couldn't keep living like this, and that she needed to show me basic respect. She laughed, not an uncomfortable chuckle, a full mocking laugh. "Oh please, you're so dramatic." Then she did something that chilled me to the bone. She smirked and said, "If you were a better husband, maybe I wouldn't be so critical." I realized right then, I didn't love her anymore. The resentment had been growing for years, but that smirk? That smug dismissal of all my concerns. That was the final nail in the coffin. I took the next few days to reflect. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that Jennifer had been tearing me down for years. The cooking was just the most obvious example. I made my decision. 2 days later, after the kids were asleep, I calmly told her that I wanted a divorce. She flipped. First, she acted like I was joking. Then she got angry. "You can't be serious. Over cooking? I told her it wasn't just cooking, it was everything. The constant belittling, the gaslighting, the manipulation. I told her I didn't want to spend the rest of my life walking on eggshells around my own wife. Then she went nuclear. She screamed that I was abandoning her, that I was ruining our family over stupid food. She called me selfish, accused me of being a bad father, and then, just to twist the knife, she grabbed the plate of dinner I had just made and threw it against the wall. I stayed calm. I told her I had already spoken to a lawyer and that I wasn't changing my mind. That night, she slept in the guest room. The next day, she tried to act like nothing had happened, but I stayed firm. I'm filing the papers next week. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know this. I refuse to spend another decade being disrespected in my own home. For the first time in years, I feel like I can breathe. Final edit. I won't be reading any more messages from the parody community that has been sending me hateful DMs. I have too much to deal with: child custody, asset division, and most of all, preparing my children for what's coming. Thank you to everyone who offered support. This isn't how I expected my life to go, but I finally feel like I'm making the right choice. And for those wondering, yes, I will continue cooking for my kids. At least someone in the house appreciates good food. My sister-in-law's husband revealed that she had cheated and that her daughter was not his biological child during the welcome party for the new family member. After years of attempting to grow our family, my husband Brian, 40, and I, 39, recently adopted a 10-year-old girl named Stee. She is truly amazing, full of inquiry, kindness, and a quiet strength that inspires me. The entire process was difficult and emotional, but from the moment we met her, we knew she was the missing piece. We were excited to provide her with a caring home and grateful to have her in our lives. To officially welcome her, we hosted a small party for close family and friends. We were ecstatic, and because this was such a significant occasion for our family, we wanted to make the day extra special for Stee. We went all out with decorations, balloons, banners, and more, even ordering a cake with her name on it. We wanted to make sure Stee felt appreciated, accepted, and loved. We invited our entire family, including my sister-in-law Betty, 35, her daughter Violet, 7, and her husband Zane, 35, who is also my cousin. Betty is well known for indulging Violet so much that she is referred to as the family princess. Betty has always been very attached to Violet, lavishing her with care and making sure she is the star of family gatherings. She enjoys bragging about Violet's accomplishments, no matter how modest, and frequently advises that Violet be the focal point of our gatherings. Betty frequently becomes visibly sad when Violet is not the focus of attention, so we've all learned to show Violet some extra love to keep Betty happy. When I told Betty about our adoption and Stee's welcoming celebration, she was quite annoyed. Instead of praising us, she said something like, "So Violet won't be the only family princess now," before abruptly changing the subject. It was a bizarre response, but I assumed it was just jealousy that will pass. However, over the next 2 weeks, Betty began making small remarks that made me anxious. She'd say things like, "It'll be difficult for Violet to share the spotlight," or, "Not every kid knows how to be around a real princess." It felt like she was implying that Stee didn't quite measure up to Violet. I decided to let it go, figuring Betty just needed time to adjust to the fact that Violet was no longer the only grandchild. I considered holding a more low-key celebration, but I ultimately decided it was more important to make Stee feel unique and included. Finally, the big day arrived, and everything was just perfect. The decorations were stunning, and our home was filled with family and friends eager to meet Stee. Brian and I were overjoyed to see her so happy and relaxed around everyone. It felt like a fresh start for us all. When Betty, Zane, and Violet arrived, I instantly noticed Betty's awkwardness. She forced a grin, avoided eye contact, and stared at the decor with disappointment. In contrast, Zane was ecstatic to meet his niece. Despite Betty's unusual behavior, I attempted to maintain a pleasant attitude and focus on ensuring Stee's enjoyment. Betty's actions grew more noticeable as the celebration progressed. Whenever someone complimented Stee, she'd respond with something about Violet. For example, if someone admired Stee's politeness, Betty would respond by reminding everyone how nice Violet had always been. If someone complimented Stee's clothing, Betty would proudly proclaim that Violet had been dressing like a little princess since she was a newborn. It was unrelenting. She would not allow Stee to have her moment in the spotlight. The worst part was when I noticed Betty gathered with a few others in a corner. I could hear fragments of their conversation, and it was evident she was talking about us. Betty was saying things like, "Some folks just do not know how to raise a true princess," and "It takes a special kind of parent to really nurture a child." It hurt to think that Betty would go to such lengths to undermine our efforts to make Stee feel loved and included. Just as I was about to face her, something unexpected occurred. Zane, who had been relatively quiet all night, suddenly rose up and requested everyone's attention. I was taken aback. I expected he'd make a toast or say something good about Steve. Instead, he released a bombshell that had everyone dumbfounded. Zane delivered devastating news in a calm but strong tone. He revealed that he had learned Betty had cheated on him years before with one of his buddies. After considerable investigation, he discovered that Violet is not his biological daughter. He added that he had just recently accepted this and had been suffering with it for some time, but after witnessing Betty's behavior at the party, he felt compelled to speak up. He said that he was going to file for divorce and split, but he would still be there for Violet if she wanted him in her life. The room became utterly silent. Betty's face turned pale, and she was left speechless. She stood there motionless, as if she didn't understand what had happened. After a moment, she turned and fled out of the room, her face a mix of amazement and panic. Zane quickly followed, leaving everyone stunned. The rest of the party went silent, but we were able to refocus on Sty and enjoy the night. I felt a sense of comfort as I saw her grin, blissfully unaware of the familial drama that had just occurred. Despite everything, she had a terrific day, and it felt like our little family was finally coming together in the way I had always wanted. Betty has not contacted anyone since that night, and the family is torn over what happened. Some believe Zane did the right thing by standing up for himself and confronting Betty, particularly given her actions at the party. Others believe he should have kept it more private. A few family members have even indicated that I should not have had such a large welcoming party, given Betty's view of Violet as the family princess. They suggest that my actions may have prompted Betty's outburst and the subsequent family conflict. This entire affair has left me feeling torn. On the one hand, I planned the celebration to honor Sty and express her affection. On the other hand, I can't help but wonder whether I should have anticipated Betty's reaction and been more mindful of her feelings for Violet. I'm conflicted because I don't believe I should have to tone down a celebration for Sty simply to make someone else feel better. Sty deserves all of the joy, and we will not apologize for it. However, Brian and I have stated unequivocally that we will not fund her legal bills or anything else, and we intend to stay to that position. Now we're attempting to figure out how to deal with Betty's demands. Part of me wants to explain why we aren't paying and establish hard boundaries. Betty's marital problems are not our responsibility, and it is inappropriate for her to blame us. But another part of me believes it would be best to ignore her and concentrate on our family, allowing Betty to solve her own mess. Our top priority is Steve's pleasure. Hello everyone, I'm here with another update on what's been happening since my last post. Things have definitely picked up. Sty is doing wonderful and adjusting well at home, but I've noticed she's been a little quieter lately, which has me concerned. Zane recently reached out to us. He has been trying to digest everything that has transpired, but he wanted us to know he has our back and is concerned about Steve. That meant a lot, especially given the havoc Betty had created. Betty then escalated the situation by openly accusing Zane of being a poor father on social media, claiming he was leaving Violet during this difficult time. It was startling and only added gasoline to the family conflict. Many people defended Zane, which was encouraging, but it also demonstrates how far Betty has fallen. She even felt compelled to encourage both Zane and Sty. Brian and I decided to step in. We talked to Zane and agreed that he should take measures to clear the air concerning Violet and Betty. He deserves to tell his story and shield his kid from the consequences of Betty's conduct. In the midst of all this upheaval, it tears my heart to see Steve retreat. She is beginning to believe it is her fault, that if she had not entered our lives, Betty and Zane would not be experiencing these difficulties. It is difficult to watch her struggle with such intense emotions. Brian and I are doing our best to tell her that none of this is her fault and that our feelings for her remain unchanged. As we work through this difficult circumstance, I sincerely hope Betty understands the repercussions of her actions. For the time being, our first concern is Steve's health and ensuring that she feels safe and loved in our house. For the time being, our first concern is Steve's health and ensuring that she feels safe and loved in our house. Post 3. It's been approximately 4 months since my last post, and it appears that Betty is still dealing with her drama, as things are just growing worse by the day. So, remember how she accused Zane of being a bad dad? Yeah, about that. She stated he was leaving Violet during this hard moment. It was completely ludicrous, especially given she was the one who dropped Violet off at his apartment and then abandoned her. Yes, Betty just left Violet on Zane's doorway and vanished. Betty went completely offline for a few days after leaving Violet with Zane. Everyone was naturally concerned about what she would do next. Zane was panicking, nervous and frantic as he tried to contact her and find out where she had gone. He was concerned about her mental health and what it meant for Violet, who was still adjusting to everything that had transpired. Betty reappeared unexpectedly. Kind of. She sent an SMS that shocked us all. She was on vacation with the man she had an affair with and claimed she had run out of money. She asked Zayn for money to help pay her trip, stating that she was having a good time but needed some financial assistance. We couldn't believe it. The audacity. It was astonishing that she had the audacity to beg for money while she was enjoying pleasure. Zayn was furious when he read the message. He couldn't understand how she could forsake their child and then ask for money for a trip. It simply demonstrated how careless and inconsiderate she was towards her family. When Zayn mentioned her message, it was clear she was in denial. She tried to act the victim, saying things like, "We don't understand how difficult this is for her." It was silly. She'd made her decisions, and now she's distorting the story to portray herself as the martyr. Zayn didn't hold back. He informed her she was being selfish and irresponsible, and urged her to prioritize Violet's well-being before her own desires. He also indicated that he was speaking with a lawyer concerning custody and child support. This was a significant step for him, and he realized he needed to make a stance. The more they talked about it, the clearer it became that he needed to create boundaries to guarantee Violet had a stable environment going forward. Zayn made it plain that he was not going to let Betty's erratic conduct interfere with Violet's life anymore. It was difficult for him, though. He wanted to give Betty a chance at being a decent parent, but her actions showed she was uninterested. She seemed more concerned with her own image and wants than with Violet's needs. On the other hand, Zayn adored Violet and would go to any length for her, but he felt pressured by his family to consider Betty's views. He realized he couldn't put Violet's safety at risk merely to keep things running well with Betty or anyone else. During a family meeting, Zayn was able to open out about his situation. He explained how difficult it was to accept everything and how he was attempting to be the father Violet needed. The chat provided some clarity for the family, and they began to comprehend how serious the situation was with everything going on. It felt like we were all bracing for the next big shock. Betty's unpredictable behavior put everyone on edge, and we couldn't help but wonder how far she would go to maintain the upper hand in the situation. Zayn ultimately decided to proceed with the custody process. He thought it was the greatest option to provide Violet a stable home away from the havoc Betty was causing in their life. It was a difficult decision for him, but he knew it needed to be made. As we worked to disentangle this complicated family drama, it became evident that Betty was fully responsible for her conduct. She was the one who caused the problem and made the decisions that led us here. While we all hoped she would eventually realize her faults and seek assistance, we couldn't allow her to dictate how we moved ahead as a family. Stie has been a lot quieter since the family drama started. She appeared enthusiastic about her new life at first, but the tension with Betty and the pandemonium surrounding Zayn had a bad effect on her. She fears she may have caused the problems between Zayn and Betty. It kills my heart to see her like this. We have tried to convince her that none of this is her fault and that our feelings for her have not altered. We want her to feel safe and comfortable despite the commotion around her. Hopefully, Betty will come to her senses and stop subjecting the entire family to her drama. Update 4. Hi everyone, I haven't posted in a long time. I'm back with another update, and things have taken a severe turn. It's been a roller coaster, but I'm relieved to say that Zayn has officially earned custody of Violet after everything he's been through with Betty. This feels like a tremendous win for him and, more crucially, Violet. I won't get into the legal technicalities because, frankly, I don't understand anything, but the main point is that Zayn has Violet's custody. Let's look into what's going on with Betty. She has been losing control since the ruling. Instead of taking a step back and reflecting on her decisions, she has embraced the victim mindset. It's actually quite bizarre to behold. She has been shouting on social media about how unfair the court was and how Zayn manipulated everything to take Violet away from her. It's as if she's in her own little world, with her as the main character, and it's just insane. She has even attempted to rally family members behind her cause, believing that if she can get enough support, everything is possible. Spoiler alert, it did not work at all. Most of us have just chosen to ignore her. Please, we are over her drama and do not want to be dragged back into it. It feels wonderful to have taken that decision as a family. One especially embarrassing moment occurred when Betty showed up uninvited to a family gathering. She barged in and demanded to speak with Zayn. The tension rose as she began ranting about how unfairly she was being handled. Instead of getting caught up in her craziness, Zayn politely requested her to leave. It was a watershed moment for him, and the rest of us stood with him, supporting him. Betty's behavior has remained relatively consistent since then. She lashes out, seeks sympathy, and then withdraws into her own mess. Each time she does this, she distances herself further from her family. We can all see the pattern. She thrives on attention and drama, but we are no longer providing her with either. Zayn has remained focused on Violet and her needs. He understands that engaging in theatrics will throw all he is striving to construct for their daughter off balance. Instead, he has worked tirelessly to establish a caring and supportive environment for Violet, which is exactly what she requires after everything that has occurred. Betty's attempts to elicit a rise out of Zane have completely failed. She has been sending urgent texts and blogging about how cruelly she has been treated, but it is clear that her family has opted to simply ignore her. It's almost comical to watch her collapse while we focus on creating a safe atmosphere for Violet. Violet is doing quite well considering everything that has occurred. Zane is ensuring that her needs are addressed and that she feels safe at home. The contrast between Betty's chaotic existence and the steadiness Zane provides is remarkable. It's wonderful to see Violet thrive in her new surroundings. Betty's downward spiral has led her to isolate herself even further. She has lost connection with friends and relatives who are tired of her drama, and it is difficult to see someone you once cared about struggle in a similar way. But we all know she needs to accept responsibility for her actions, and we will not allow her mayhem to interrupt our lives any longer. So that's the current position. Zane now has custody of Violet, and as Betty continues to lose it, we are all focused on providing a loving and stable environment for her kid. Sadie is finally feeling better following her custody struggle with Betty. Sadie was at first unhappy and concerned that she was causing issues for the family, but now that Zane has custody of Violet and things have cooled down, she feels more secure. We have worked hard to provide a caring and joyful atmosphere for her. She is becoming more interested in family activities and talking up about her emotions. It is wonderful to see her smile and hear her joy again. Sty has also stepped up as Violet's big sister, helping her feel more connected to the family. Their friendship is growing deeper, and it's wonderful to see them support each other every day. Sty is learning that it's all right to be happy even when things are difficult. We are committed to ensuring she feels loved and happy, and it is evident that she is beginning to accept her new existence. Update 5. Hello everyone, it's been 6 months since the last update, and I'm here with another one, hopefully the last. Okay, let us get right into it. Betty was extremely distressed over the custody judgment. She was venting on social media, hoping for sympathy from anyone who would listen. It was clear she was struggling with losing custody in her upcoming divorce from Zane. Then, out of the blue, she contacted us and requested a meeting. We were all hesitant at first, given what had happened. Meeting her felt like a horrible idea, but after discussing it as a family, we decided to give her a chance. We thought it was critical to hear her perspective. Zane agreed to meet her, but made it plain he would not be drawn back into her chaos. We chose a cafe for the meeting. Betty immediately got in once we sat down. She began talking about how she couldn't bear the notion of losing her daughter. She continued saying she was going to change, that she was committed to being a better mother, and that she recognized how her actions had affected Violet. During the conversation, Betty became upset and shed some tears. She spoke of loneliness and how everything had pushed her to her limits. She continually stated that she did not want to lose either Violet or Zane. Zane was upfront with her, stating that he could no longer trust her. He highlighted that Violet's well-being was his #1 priority. She tried to persuade him they could work things out, but it was evident he had already made up his mind. He thought that the only way to protect himself and Violet was to move forward with the divorce. That is when it struck her. She had not only lost custody of her daughter, but also her final chance to save her marriage. Betty's voice grew noticeably quieter following our meeting. It seems that the truth of her situation was now setting in. The weight of her decisions weighed hard on her, and while it was a difficult revelation to swallow, I hoped it would inspire her to make serious changes. I wanted to believe she could stand up for Violet, but there was still distrust among us. Only time would tell if this new perspective was a passing fad or if she was actually committed to making an impact. In the following weeks, we noticed some changes in Betty. She began reaching out more, inquiring about Violet and expressing a desire to become more active. Zane, however wary, decided to give her some room to demonstrate her seriousness. He wasn't ready to accept her back into their lives right away, but he recognized that Violet deserved to have her mother around if Betty was truly committed to making great changes. We were all apprehensive, but we also had a glimmer of optimism that Betty was genuinely attempting to change her life. Violet, for her part, appeared a little bewildered. She periodically inquired about her mother and how she was doing. Zane answered intelligently, making sure to confirm Violet's feelings without setting her expectations too high. Zane once sat down with Violet and had an open chat about her mother. He said that Betty was working on making improvements, but they might take some time to become obvious. Violet missed her mother despite everything that had happened, and it hurt my heart to see her struggle with this. As the weeks passed, we noticed some positive changes in Betty. She started attending to therapy and tried to put her life back on track. She even contacted several family members in an attempt to restore the relationship she had separated herself from. While she impressed me, I couldn't help but feel suspicious. Zane, on the other hand, was primarily concerned with providing Violet with a stable home. He was really stepping up as a father, spending meaningful time with her and ensuring she felt loved and safe. They began a new pattern consisting of family dinners, game evenings, and weekend outings. It was wonderful to see Violet begin to relax and appreciate the good things in life again. Her current circumstance was vastly different from the chaos of the past, and it gave us all hope. However, Betty's path was not without difficulties. There were instances when she reverted to her old habits. She once sent Zane an irregular text in which she expressed her dissatisfaction with their visitation plans. It seemed like a step backward, and Zane had to tell her that he was doing his best to balance her needs and Violet's. When that happened, we could see Zane's stress level rise again. He was working hard to improve Violet's circumstances, and Betty's actions appeared to be undermining that stability. He took a step back, reminding himself not to get caught up in her drama and instead focus on what was best for their kid. Despite the ups and downs, Zane remained steadfast in his devotion. Violet's well-being remains his #1 priority. I admire his determination and how he has reclaimed control of their life after so much turmoil. It has not been easy for him, but he has shown great strength. Violet appears to be adjusting fairly well. Sure, she still worries about her mother, but she's learning that it's good to have fun even when things are bad. It's so lovely to see her laughing and playing again. We are all doing our best to create good memories with her, and it is clear that she is responding favorably. Betty's adventure, on the other hand, is a little more exciting. Some days, she demonstrates genuine potential, such as when she contacts Violet to inquire about her welfare. It appears like she is attempting to move her focus away from her own problems and toward her kid, which is a positive indicator. Still, we all know she has a long way to go before she can be a reliable presence in Violet's life. Betty recently indicated a desire to be more connected with Violet, and she appeared sincere about it. It marked a significant departure from her previous behavior, in which she frequently prioritized her personal wants. Zane is still being cautious, but has agreed to allow her some visitation time, based on her commitment to make meaningful changes. Betty appears to be making an honest effort, and it's difficult not to be optimistic about her future change. I want to believe she can be the mother Violet requires and deserves, but we're all trying to keep our expectations under control. And what about Stee? She's doing fantastic. She's an amazing angel. She has been there for Violet during this time, and everyone in the family adores her. After my father passed, my family grew distant due to our spoiled sister. Now, as I help my brother with medical bills, she demands a house. I, 36F, have 2 siblings, my brother Damon, 34M, and my sister Nancy, 28F. Simply put, Nancy was and always has been the golden kid, particularly in my mother's eyes. Dad had some wisdom. He'd periodically urge Nancy to cut it out, but he gave her far more liberty than Damon or me. Mom. Forget it. She would let Nancy get away with anything. Nancy was what my parents affectionately referred to as a surprise. She arrived considerably later than Damon and me, and I really feel the age difference contributed significantly to the special treatment. She has been handled differently since she was able to walk and talk. It's tough to pinpoint exactly how it manifested, but it was everywhere. More attention, a larger presence, constant praise, basically more of everything great. What if she misbehaved? No consequences. Mom would laugh it off like it was the cutest thing in the world. Growing up in the shadow of a beloved brother is an especially terrible experience. It reduces your self-worth. You continuously feel inadequate, as if you're always in second place, or, in my case, third. You begin to believe that no matter how hard you work, you will never be as excellent as others. The most hurtful component was Mom's outright reluctance to admit the bias. If Nancy said something cruel, and trust me, she had a skill for it, Mom would ignore our injured sentiments, stating we were overly sensitive or Nancy was joking. However, it was never a joke. You could see it in Nancy's eyes, in the small, satisfied grin she'd give. She relished making us feel small. I recall a period when I was approximately 12. I received new clothing, which I was quite excited about. Nancy took one look at me and exclaimed, "It makes you look even wider than usual." Mom just laughed and said, "Oh, Nancy, don't be silly." But I felt my face boil with humiliation. It was a consistent pattern. Our family seemed divided into 2 teams. Mom and Nancy against the world, and Dad, Damon, and me, who were constantly on the defensive. Even Dad wasn't a dependable teammate. He would frequently flip sides, presumably to keep the peace. So, what types of activities did Nancy do? It was a relentless assault of vitriol directed at anything and everything: my appearance, Damon's job goals, our life choices. Nothing was off bounds. She had a flair for identifying and exploiting your insecurities. The Thanksgiving situation with Damon is an excellent illustration. He was enthusiastically expressing his literary degree, his love of reading, and his desire to write. Nancy casually referred to him as an unemployed burden at the dinner table, in front of the entire extended family. The hush that ensued was deafening. Dad grumbled something about Nancy being out of line, but Mom simply smiled indulgently. Another day, after a particularly demanding week at work, I was complaining to Nancy about how fatigued I was. She pounced on that, starting into a rant about how I looked extremely haggard and how my long hours meant I'd never find a guy. She said, and I remember the exact words because they stung so badly, "You look like you haven't slept in days, and honestly, no guy wants a workaholic hag who looks like she's aged 10 years in the past too." I went utterly silent for several weeks following that. I couldn't force myself to speak to her. It wasn't only us. She treated friends, extended family, and strangers with the same casual disrespect. Anyone other than Mom was fair game. Damon and I rightly harbored considerable hatred. We despised Nancy's brutality, but we despised Mom much more for allowing it. I recall having a particularly intense debate with Damon during which I stated that we despised her for it, referring to Mom's unflinching support for Nancy's behavior. I know it seems harsh, but it's the honest truth about how we felt. I believe Nancy's physical attractiveness contributed to her difficulty coping. She appeared conventionally attractive. I know it sounds petty to admit, but it is relevant. It is simpler to disregard insults from someone you consider equal, or even someone you regard as inferior to you. However, when someone who is commonly regarded as gorgeous tells you that you are not, it is taken more seriously. It plants the seed of doubt in your mind. I began to question my own appearance and worth. Looking back, with the advantage of hindsight and therapy, I believe Nancy's relentless urge to criticize others stemmed from her own deep-seated insecurity. She did not follow a traditional career path. She dabbled in freelance graphic design, but it was more of a pastime than a profession. She depended greatly on our parents, both financially and emotionally. Perhaps she belittled others to compensate for her own perceived flaws. Damon and I tried to disregard her words. Until we were 25, things changed radically. Our father died 8 years ago, and he was, in many ways, the glue that held our fragmented family together, despite his own role in the imbalance. He wasn't ideal. He certainly tolerated Nancy's behavior more than he should have. But he was the one who periodically attempted to mediate, to smooth things over, to keep some sort of order. His death devastated their fragile connection. After he left, Damon and I began to move apart from Mom and Nancy. It began slowly, with fewer phone calls and visits. We'd still see them at big family gatherings, the rare holiday, and maybe Christmas, but only on special occasions, if we felt like it. If we wanted to, we could make that phrase our motto. Then it became an intentional decision. We actively began avoiding them. A wall, as I've learned to call it, had formed between us and them. Honestly, I liked the wall. It provided a much-needed barrier, reducing exposure to Nancy's attacks and witnessing Mom's angry enabling. Initially, following Dad's illness and final death, we made real attempts to retain communication. We felt obligated, I think. But those attempts were really strained. Each phone contact and visit felt forced and unpleasant. During those brief contacts, Mom would almost always say or do something that reinforced our need for distance. She'd make some lovely remarks about Nancy's non-existent successes or discreetly critique our decisions, reminding us of why we were pulling away in the first place. One especially embarrassing Christmas meal, Mom spent the entire evening extolling Nancy's creative talent, displaying some very horrible drawings Nancy had allegedly done for a large client, who turned out to be a distant cousin. Meanwhile, she entirely overlooked Damon's recent promotion and my successful completion of a large assignment at work. It was a vivid reminder of the dynamic we were attempting to avoid. Damon and I eventually started making excuses, which became more complicated. We were overloaded with work. We had prior engagements. We were coming down with something, anything to avoid spending time with them. We understood that the emotional cost of those contacts far exceeded any felt familial obligation. Damon and I shared a tacit, unspoken agreement. We both acknowledged the dysfunction and implicitly agreed that distance was the best option. It wasn't that we didn't want to visit after Dad died. Rather, we opted not to. It was not about insulting his memory. It was about safeguarding our own mental and emotional health. Crucially, Mom and Nancy made no meaningful effort to keep communication. They weren't continually phoning, pleading with us to come. The decision to drift away was mutual and unspoken. We were all financially stable, so there was no practical reason for frequent interaction. It was just easier to maintain different orbits. Silence was a relief. Damon suffered a serious accident a few years back and shattered his ankle. He was between jobs at the time and devoted all of his efforts and resources to the establishment of an online magazine. Money was scarce, and medical expenses were building up. As the CFO of a successful company, I volunteered to assist him in covering the bills. He originally refused, being the fiercely independent individual that he is, but I persisted. I didn't want him to spend his savings just as his magazine was ready to launch. I covered everything: his medication, the considerable physiotherapy he required, and even the cost of a full-time nurse to help him recuperate. To me, it was an obvious choice. It wasn't about the money. It was about supporting my brother, whom I actually cared about and wanted to succeed. It was an expression of sibling love and support. This gesture of charity, however, unintentionally established a hazardous precedent in the minds of Nancy and my mother. A few weeks later, Nancy called me and left me stunned. It was so bold and weird that I immediately assumed she was joking. She told me she wanted to acquire a penthouse apartment. Not just any apartment, but a penthouse, and she required my financial assistance. She defended her ridiculous request by claiming that she was embarrassed to still be living with her mother at the age of 28, and that since I had helped Damon, it was only fair that I also aid her. She carelessly forgot to disclose that she only had enough money to pay for half of the cost of this luxurious apartment. My instant reaction was a mix of disbelief and boiling rage. We rarely talked, and when we did, it was generally interrupted by Nancy's insults and hostility. And now, out of nowhere, she is asking for a large sum of money. It was surreal. We had not had a genuine, meaningful chat in years. The last time we spoke, she was busy criticizing my life choices, doubting my career, and making snarky remarks about my appearance. The audacity was amazing. I sought to understand her career, or lack thereof. She billed herself as a freelance graphic designer, although it was more of a casual pastime than a legitimate profession. She had no formal education, no degree, and no portfolio to speak of. She'd made a couple of posters for Dad's firm years ago, but they hadn't been utilized. She pretended to have a list of exclusive clients, but they were mostly family friends drawn in by Mom's constant push. It was certainly not a career that would allow me to afford a penthouse. So I gave a solid no. I told her straight out that I was not going to support her expensive lifestyle. I suggested, perhaps a little harshly, that she consider finding a real job if she wanted to purchase such pleasures. I know it wasn't the most polite response, but I was honestly taken aback by her entitlement. She took my refusal poorly, as one would expect. She went on a furious diatribe, accusing me of bias towards Damon. She screamed about how I had readily assisted him with his medical expenditures and how it was my responsibility as the eldest sibling to support her too. She entirely ignored the reality that Damon's predicament was an actual emergency, whereas hers was a self-induced craving for luxury. I tried to be calm, but my patience was getting thin. I reiterated my refusal, emphasizing that I was not a bank and was not obligated to pay her unreasonable goals. I was so disgusted by her entitlement and complete lack of self-awareness. It was as if she truly believed she deserved this penthouse simply because she was my sister. The talk quickly turned into a full-fledged dispute, with Nancy's voice reaching near hysterical levels. Finally, I said no one, and hung up the phone. I couldn't take another second of her screeching. She phoned back several times, but I ignored every call. I was finished. It was quite evident that our relationship, or whatever pretense of a relationship we had, was entirely transactional for her. She only contacted me when she wanted something, with no consideration for my sentiments or the years of awkward quiet between us. It was completely exhausting. Unsurprisingly, the drama did not end with Nancy's rage. My mother called me next, and the talk was much more aggravating. She began with a whining, passive-aggressive tone, complaining about how unfair I was to Nancy and accused me of playing favorites. She claimed I owed them anything because of my upbringing. Then she revealed an important detail. Nancy had approached our uncle, Dad's brother, who had taken over the family business, before coming to me. He had rightly turned down her plea. This exposed the extent of their desperation, and the fact that I was their second option further increased my rage. A little background: I purposely chose a career path outside of the family business. I did not want to be involved, neither did Damon. To be honest, Nancy didn't either, until it was convenient for her to pretend differently. After Dad died, his brother took over the company, and Mom lived comfortably on Dad's shares, which had been legally transferred to her as part of his will. Mom then admitted that their financial condition was fragile, owing to Nancy's lavish spending habits. She claimed that providing Nancy the money for the penthouse would make things easier for her in the future, implying that she wanted me to subsidize Nancy's lifestyle so she didn't have to. She then used the standard guilt trip, threatening no contact if I refused to comply with their requests. This was simply ludicrous, given that we were already in a position of very little interaction. I politely pointed out the contradiction, telling her that it wasn't my concern and that Nancy could get a job or stay with her until she was 35, for all I cared. My wrath, which had been building for years, suddenly erupted. I let loose a flood of pent-up rage. I told her she had no right to accuse me of favoritism because she had been doing it my entire life. I reminded her that Damon and I had made peace with her obvious preference years ago, when we accepted the truth of our broken family dynamic. I clearly explained that I owed them nothing, that I had my own life, obligations, and objectives. She responded with more ranting, accusing me of being ungrateful and disrespectful. She screamed that she never wanted to speak with me again. I chuckled. Because, really, what difference would it make? We scarcely spoke as things were. I mentioned my approaching wedding, emphasizing that I did not need her presence in my life. Then I hung off the phone and blocked her and Nancy on every platform possible. An important detail I didn't mention earlier: I should probably clarify that I am engaged to a beautiful, supportive man named Andrew, 37M. We've been together for nearly 5 years, and he's been quite understanding of the nuances of my familial situation. Initially, I considered bringing Mom and Nancy to the wedding solely out of obligation, a desire to keep some sort of family peace. But what happens following that explosive phone call? That thought went totally. However, the aftermath of the confrontation was not as simple as I had anticipated. Mom, unable to reach me directly, messaged Andrew via social media. She poured out her highly biased version of events, expressing her profound disappointment in me and announcing that she would permanently cut me off. Despite knowing I was right, I felt a little guilty. It's a bizarre, irrational feeling, that societal indoctrination that tells you that family is everything, regardless of how bad the connection is. Furthermore, Andrew first hesitated to grasp the situation properly. He is from a close-knit, caring, and supporting family. He had no idea that his mother and sister could be so cruel. He originally felt pity for Mom and Nancy, seeing them as the victimized parties. He couldn't fully realize the severity of the malfunction. This caused a temporary but major strain between us. I felt myself having to justify my conduct, explaining the situation's history once more. So, Reddit, AITA. I honestly don't believe I am, but I'm interested in hearing your thoughts. And thank you for reading this entire long narrative. Update 1. Fortunately, the encouragement I received online from strangers on Reddit who had read earlier sections of this story was quite affirming. Their remarks, shared experiences, and unflinching support all helped to alleviate those niggling doubts. They reminded me that I wasn't alone, that my emotions were genuine, and that I had every right to defend myself from toxic people, even if they were family members. Damon, as always, reiterated what the online trolls were saying. He reminded me of innumerable examples of Mom and Nancy's manipulative conduct, constant negativity, and complete lack of empathy. He acknowledged my feelings and assured me that I wasn't being unreasonable or overreacting. He, too, had been through it. He understood. A crucial turning point. The most significant turning point, however, was when Damon sat down with Andrew and described the problem from his perspective. He gave specific examples, went over the history of the family dynamic, and built a vivid picture of the emotional toll it had on both of us. Hearing it from Damon, who had seen the dysfunction personally, made all the difference. Andrew's opinion changed almost fast. He finally understood. He saw the problem for what it was. A toxic, extremely unhealthy familial dynamic that I needed to get away from. He apologized for his initial concerns, confessing that his own happy family experiences had blinded him to the reality of my circumstance. He even stated that his own parents would never behave in such a manner. From that point forward, Dad became my loyal supporter, totally backing my decision to cut ties with Mom and Nancy. Taking action, so we took action. We stopped them, Mr. Damon, Andrew, all of us, on all platforms. Update 2, just as I thought it was over? Just as I thought the drama was done, it took another unexpected turn. My uncle, Dad's brother, who had taken over the family business, contacted me and Damon about an urgent situation. He sounded quite anxious. Nearly frantic. He informed us that Mom was preparing to transfer a significant percentage of her company shares to Nancy. And not just any shares. She meant to offer Nancy voting shares, giving her enormous authority over the company. His reaction was quick. He thought it was a completely bad idea. A recipe for calamity. He understood, as we all did, that Nancy was completely incompetent in business. She had no experience. Complete lack of comprehension. She has absolutely no interest in anything other than her own superficial desires. Giving her vote rights in the corporation was, in his opinion, a terrible blunder that may destroy the entire operation. He stated that while Mom theoretically had voting authority, she had always deferred to his judgment. She had never interfered with the operation of the firm, trusting him to make wise decisions. He was really concerned that if Nancy took control, things would change. He saw continuous debates, power struggles, and potentially dangerous judgments motivated by Nancy's desires and Mom's blind favoritism. He plainly indicated that he did not want to be in ongoing disputes with them over every area of the firm. A difficult realization, Damon and I became instantly alarmed. We understood that the company's success was critical, not just for our uncle, but for the livelihoods of many people. We also experienced a sense of obligation. A lasting commitment to our father's legacy. So we arrived at a difficult decision. We couldn't just stand there and watch this unfold. We felt a moral obligation to intervene and try to avert what we perceived as an imminent calamity. We agreed to speak with our mother, despite our damaged relationship and the recent heated incident. We also felt a special obligation to our uncle, who had been so supportive and kind to us following Dad's death. He had, as I previously stated, watched out for us, and we couldn't in good conscience leave him to cope with this potential disaster on his own. We were concerned about the company's future, and we felt compelled to safeguard it, even if it meant confronting Mom and Nancy again. Update 3, the confrontation. We braced ourselves and went to see Mom, well expecting that Nancy would be there, and that her presence would make the conversation exponentially more difficult. We knew it would be unpleasant, but we believed it was necessary. As expected, Nancy was perched behind Mom like a deadly bird. We jumped right into the subject, expressing our strong objection to the plan to give Nancy voting shares. We labeled it an utterly ridiculous concept without holding back. Mom originally used a technique of stony silence, refusing to acknowledge our presence or worries. She completely ignored us as if we were not present in the room. Then she changed tactics, stating that we had no right to meddle in her decision and that she had no desire to engage with us. Nancy, predictably, screamed about how we were envious of her, how we had never taken the opportunity to be part of the family business, and how we were acting as if we owned the establishment. Her voice rose to a fever pitch, and her face distorted with wrath. It was an extremely unpleasant and stressful scene. I anxiously tried to argue with Mom, appealing to her sense of logic and accountability. I informed her, on several occasions, that Dad had expressly specified that he did not want any of his children involved in the day-to-day operations of the company. He had implicitly trusted his brother, our uncle, and wanted to prevent any future family squabbles or court battles. I highlighted that I had consciously selected a different career path based on Dad's intentions, out of respect for his vision. I begged her, virtually pleading with her, to reconsider her choice. To consider the probable repercussions. The harm she could cause, on the corporation, on our uncle, and on everyone who relied on the business for a living. Throughout my attempts at a calm discussion, Nancy continued to scream allegations of envy, hatred, and interference. She even threatened to call the police on us, as if we were trespassers. Intruders. In our mother's home. It was an insane display of entitlement and wrath. Nancy was probably afraid. She knew deep down that her financial security, her entire lifestyle, depended on Mom's continuing control over the corporation. She was terrified at the possibility of losing that stability and having to rely only on herself. Also, I believe Mom's silence during Nancy's outburst was purposeful, aimed to make me feel horrible, as if I was attacking her. Finally, after what seemed like an age, Mom quieted everyone. She told us, in a cold, dismissive tone, that we had been extremely disrespectful and offensive, and she instructed us to go. She stated she would consider what we had said and notify our uncle of her decision. Nancy, of course, remained at her side. Damon and I departed. We had done our best. We had made our point plainly and forcefully. We had appealed to Mom's sense of reason. To her devotion to Dad's wishes. To express her concern about the company's future. But we didn't know if it had made an impact. We hoped she'd reconsider. But we were ready for the worst. That night, I spoke with Andrew, describing the events. I assured him that even if things didn't go our way, at least we tried. Update 4. Surprising results. 2 painful weeks passed. Then, our uncle phoned us again with fantastic news. He informed us that, after great thought, Mom had decided not to give Nancy voting rights in the company. Instead, she planned to transfer preferred shares to her, which would give Nancy with a steady income but no control over the company's activities. It was a huge relief. Nancy's probable mismanagement did not pose a threat to the organization for the time being. Our uncle could continue to manage it successfully without the constant danger of interruption. Most significantly, Damon and I maintained no contact with Mom and Nancy. This was the ultimate victory. The entire scenario had been extremely distressing. It seemed weird to have to intervene in a situation that was officially not our immediate issue. However, we felt ethically bound to intervene. To defend our uncle. To respect our father's desires, and to secure the company's future. Edit, addressing a key assumption. I should clarify something, to answer any potential questions or misconceptions. After reading earlier postings, some people concluded that Dad had abandoned us, his other children, with nothing. That is simply not true. He did leave us assets independent from the company's shares. I had not previously highlighted such assets because I did not believe they were directly related to the underlying dispute, which revolved around Nancy's entitlement and Mom's enabling behavior. To clarify, yes, we did inherit other things. Dad wasn't completely ignorant of Nancy's shortcomings. He was not, as I previously stated, in the same boat as my mother. He had a soft spot for her and indulged her more than he should have. I prefer not to focus on the bad features of his personality. I hope to remember him warmly. The essential issue is that we were never financially dependent on Mom or Nancy. We had our own resources. We have our own careers. We live our own lives. Update 5. The final fallout. So here we are, months later. The no-contact order remains firmly in force, and it has been gloriously peaceful. My wedding is only a week away. The invites have long already been sent out. And, obviously, Mom and Nancy were not on the guest list. Our relatives, with whom we still communicate, have kept us up to date on the situation. Mom and Nancy appear to be in a complete meltdown. They found out about the wedding from our uncle, who was, of course, invited. They've been aggressively attempting to sabotage the event by contacting other family members, discouraging them from attending, spreading lies and distortions about me, and portraying themselves as innocent victims. It's pitiful, predictable, and completely unsurprising. A prime illustration of their deceitful, attention-seeking behavior. They cannot bear the thought of me being happy. Of carrying on with my life without them. Breaking the cycle, my relationship with Andrew is diametrically opposed to the one I had growing up. He is loving. Kind. Supportive. Honest. He taught me that family should not be conditional. Remember the harsh, cutting remarks Nancy used to fling at me? How could she predict I'd end up a jobless, lonely, workaholic hag? Well, the joke is on her. I am none of those things. I'm happy. I am successful. And I am going to marry the love of my life. And Damon, he is proving all of his critics wrong, including those who discounted his love of reading. I discovered that my stepdaughter had been manipulated by her biological father into investing her tuition money in a fake startup project. "Why don't you just disappear?" my stepdaughter said during a fight. Her mother joined in. "We'd be better off without you." I didn't say anything, I had just packed my suitcases. This morning, my phone exploded with 13 missed calls. Something seemed strange when I strolled into our living room. The house was abnormally silent, but that wasn't all. My gaze swept over the room, attempting to determine what was wrong. Then it struck me. All of our family photos looked different. I took a step closer to the enormous frame above the fireplace, which was from our trip to Yellowstone last year. The photo was present, but I wasn't. Every photo of me had been painstakingly erased, creating embarrassing gaps in family memories spanning the previous 3 years. I was standing there, my coffee cup becoming cold, when I heard Stella's upstairs door softly close. My stepdaughter's footsteps stopped at the top of the stairs. She had obviously seen I was awake. After a brief pause, she walked down, phone in hand, purposefully avoiding eye contact as she headed toward the kitchen. "Morning," I said, my tone calm. The hush that followed was thick with intention. 3 years. That was how long I'd been in Stella's life. 3 years of gradually establishing trust, of movie nights and math homework assistance, of attempting to be present without going too far. At the age of 16, she began to drift away. I expected ordinary teenage rebellion, but this seemed different. It began last week, when I offered to assist her with her chemistry project. She'd been grappling with the subject, and I figured it didn't matter what I thought. Her remark was like a slap. "Stop pretending you care about my grades. You're not my real dad." I'd heard variants of that before, but something about her tone was different, sharp and intentional. My wife, Delilah, was in the kitchen and must have heard, but she did not say anything. That quiet felt like taking sides. The tension grew over the week. Small things. Dishes left in the sink, with pointed looks. Doors close a little too harshly. Conversations halted when I entered the rooms. Delilah also became distant, avoiding my attempts to clarify what was going on. She's just being a teenager, Thomas. Don't make it about you. But everything burst last night. Stella was texting during supper, which goes against our customary norms. When I gently reminded her, she threw down her phone. God, why are you always policing everything I do? Why can't you just leave me alone? Stella, I said. I'm just trying to. To what? Play dad? I already have one. She stood up, the chair scratching against the floor. Why don't you just disappear? Nobody asked you to try so hard. It's pathetic. I looked at Delilah, not sure what I was expecting. Support? Mediation? Instead, she placed her fork down and calmly murmured, maybe we'd all be better off if you did. The words hung in the air, like smoke. 3 years of memories flew through my mind. The day Stella first laughed at one of my dad jokes, the night she called me in tears after her first boyfriend broke up with her, and Delilah's proud smile when Stella requested me, not her mother, to help her pick out her prom outfit. I stood up slowly, my food half finished. Okay, I replied simply. Okay, what? Stella demanded. But something flickered in her eyes. Uncertainty, perhaps. If that's how you both feel, okay? I strolled upstairs to our bedroom and took out my old duffel bag. I could hear them whispering downstairs, but no one came up while I gathered enough clothes for a few days. I saw that my hands were not shaking. I felt strangely relaxed. Stella had already left, most likely to her room, when I arrived. Delilah stood at the kitchen doorway, arms crossed. So you're just leaving? That's your solution? You said you'd be better off, I responded, looking for my keys and wallet. I'm respecting that. That's not, I didn't mean. She paused. Pride, wrath, or something else kept her from saying what she wanted to say. I took up my purse. I'll be at Ryan's. I'll figure out something more permanent soon. I hesitated at the doorway. You know, when Stella said those things before, it hurt. But hearing you agree? That broke something, Del. I drove to Ryan's apartment in solitude. He looked at me and immediately set up his guest room. That's the type of friend he is. I turned off my phone and took a sleeping pill from my emergency travel box. This morning, I awoke to find sunlight flowing through unfamiliar drapes. When I eventually turned on my phone, it was filled with notifications. 13 missed calls, 8 from Delilah, 3 from Stella, and 2 from Quinn, my sister. 27 text messages, 4 voicemails, I have not listened to them yet. I'm sitting in Ryan's guest room, watching the morning traffic below, and thinking about the empty places in our family portraits. Maybe they were always there, but I didn't want to see them. My phone vibrates again. It's Stella. After everything that has transpired, I find myself staring at her name on the screen, wondering what is so necessary right now. But I am not ready. Not yet. Walking away isn't always the hardest part, it's deciding whether to walk back. Update 1. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone who left positive comments on my previous post. I did not expect such a large response. To answer the most common questions, yes, I have read the messages. No, I have not responded to any of them yet. And yes, I am still at Ryan's. This morning began like the others, me pretending to focus on work while glancing at my phone, debating if I should break the stillness. Then Ryan dropped a bomb during breakfast. Miles is back in town, he announced, sliding his phone across the table. On Facebook, there was a photo of Stella's biological father posted at a local restaurant. 2 weeks ago? The same Miles who hasn't paid child support for 3 years. The same Miles who had missed Stella's last 4 birthdays. Suddenly, everything made sense. I scrolled through my messages again. Delilah's communications have evolved, from angry to, very mature, Thomas. Instead of talking, run away. To the concerned, please let us know you're fine. To something more complicated. Her most recent read, there's something you need to know. It's Stella, please call. Quinn arrived about lunchtime, ready with coffee and that no-nonsense expression she gives when she's about to meddle in my affairs. You look like hell, she said, sliding into Ryan's couch. Thanks. Always good to see you too, sis. She did not smile. I ran into Stella at the mall yesterday. That caught my interest. How is she? Meeting Miles. For coffee? She didn't see me, Quinn said, observing my reaction closely. She looked hopeful. You know that look she gets, like when she's trying not to get too excited about something? I understood exactly what she meant. It's the same expression Stella had when she was accepted to the summer camp last year, as if she was terrified to believe something good was happening. Did you know he's been messaging her for months? Quinn asked. Promising to make things right this time? My stomach turned. I checked Stella's Instagram, which I rarely do. Her most recent post was a snapshot of her and Miles. Caption: Real family time. Her friends' replies were loaded with heart emoticons, and none of them were aware of the background. Ryan, who had been quietly listening, eventually piped up. Remember what happened last time he showed up? Stella was 13. I remembered. Miles had arrived with huge promises, stayed for 2 weeks, and then vanished again. Stella remained in bed for several days afterward. Delilah and I spent months regaining her trust and assuring her that she was enough. That she deserved more. As if on cue, my phone lit up with a text message from Delilah. He's asking her to move in with him. She's actually considering it. Please, Thomas. I know you're angry with me, but she needs you. I began typing multiple responses. I deleted them all. What could I possibly say? Sorry, you told me to disappear, but now you need me to reappear? The entire event seemed like a terrible joke. Then followed another notification. Stella's latest Instagram post, a photo of college brochures scattered across her bed. The headline reads, "Big change is coming. Sometimes you have to choose your real path." Miles said those precise words 3 years ago, right before he traveled across the country to pursue his true passion and stopped returning Stella's calls. Quinn must have noticed something on my face. What are you thinking? I glanced at my phone, reading Delilah's message. Then I quietly said, I'm thinking about the day I married Delilah. Remember what Stella said in her speech? How sometimes family finds you when you're not looking for it. Quinn nodded. And now, I sighed. Now she's posting about her real family and her real path while Miles plays Father of the Year. He's got her convinced. My phone began to ring, and I came to a stop. Unknown number. Thomas, this is Miss Anderson from Riverside High. I'm Stella's guidance counselor. I know this is unusual, but I need to speak with you about some concerning changes in Stella's academic plans and recent behavior. Would you be able to come in tomorrow morning? I consented to the meeting, my thoughts racing. Stella had maintained straight A's since freshman year, anxious to attend a good institution. What might have changed? Quinn and Ryan both looked at me expectantly as I hung up. So? Quinn asked. I think it's time to stop being silent. I took up my phone and eventually opened Stella's voicemail. Her voice was low, unlike her normal assurance. I know you probably hate me now, and I get it. I need to tell you something. About why I said those things. About Miles. Please call me back. Something in her voice reminded me of the 13-year-old girl who would check the mailbox every day, hoping for a letter that never arrived. I have a meeting with the guidance counselor tomorrow at 9 o'clock. After that, I believe it is time for some honest conversations. Because disappearing occasionally allows you to view things more clearly from a distance. The school's number is still shown on my screen. Next to it is a text notification from Miles to our family group chat, which I am still a part of. Great news! Big announcement at dinner tomorrow night. I have a feeling I know what the announcement will be. And I will not let history repeat itself. Update 2. I spent the last hour figuring out how to write this update. The meeting with Miss Anderson showed something I had not expected. And what happened next? Well, let me start at the beginning. I arrived at Riverside High early and observed students rushing to the first period. A couple of Stella's classmates knew me, and their quick glances and murmurs informed me that stories about my absence had already circulated. Miss Anderson did not waste time after I sat down. Stella submitted paperwork to withdraw from her advanced placement classes yesterday, she explained, sliding a form across her desk. She's also dropping out of the French club and student council. When I asked why, she said she's transferring schools next semester. My chest tightened. Stella battled hard to get into these programs. She had been counting on extracurricular activities to help her college applications. There's more, Miss Anderson added. Last week, she asked me to send her transcripts to 3 different schools. All in California. She halted and attentively observed me. The same city where Miles recently purchased property. That's when things started falling into place. I brought out my phone and showed her Miles' huge announcement text. Let me guess. He's opening a new business out there. She nodded. Stella mentioned something about a startup. Said her father needs family investors to get it off the ground. The usual, nauseous feeling returned. The same one I received 3 years ago, when Miles persuaded Delilah to lend him money for a sure-thing business endeavor. We never saw the money again. I left the school and drove directly to our house. Delilah's automobile was in the driveway. I could see her pacing in the kitchen with a phone to her ear. She saw me and ran to answer the door before I could knock. He asked her for money, she replied promptly. Her college fund. He's been filling her head with promises about this tech startup, saying that if she invests now, she'll make enough to pay for any college she wants. Where is she? Coffee with Miles. Again. Delilah's voice broke. I tried telling her it's a scam, but she accused me of being jealous, that he's finally stepping up. She said at least he believes in her dreams. I sat down at the kitchen counter, the identical location where everything collapsed a week ago. Why didn't you tell me he was back? I tried to handle it myself. She exhaled. I wondered if I could keep them apart. She shook her head. Then you and Stella got into an argument and she said terrible things, and I just panicked. I sided with her because I was terrified not to. She'd go all in for him. Before I could react, the front door opened. Stella walked in. She froze when she saw me. She looked different. Makeup applied carefully. Stella was dressed in an expensive jacket Miles had most likely purchased for her. But her eyes were crimson. What are you doing here? She asked. However, her voice lacked its typical sharpness. Are you dropping your AP courses, really? I kept my tone gentle. What happened to Stanford? Plans change, she murmured, avoiding my gaze. Dad says. Miles says, I said gently. Something flickered on her face. He has connections out there. The startup is guaranteed to. As if the classic car dealership were guaranteed? Or a food truck franchise? I took out my laptop and opened the documents that I had spent the morning gathering. I did some digging. Want to know Miles' current company registration status, or his credit report? Or about the 3 ongoing cases from his previous guaranteed investment opportunity? Stella's hands trembled as she grabbed the laptop. With each click and document, the careful facade cracked a little more. When she reached the lawsuit filed by his prior stepdaughter's grandmother to collect college funds he had borrowed, the first tear flowed. He said. She swallowed hard. He said he had changed. He wants to make up for lost time. That we could be a true family if. She paused and looked up at me. A photo album. He stated I needed to prove I was choosing him. That you were the reason he remained away. You took his place. Oh, sweetie, Delilah approached, but Stella stepped back. I knew, she said quietly. I guess I knew. But I desperately wanted to believe. Her phone vibrated. Miles sent another SMS. She stared at it for a long time before shutting it off entirely. I have to go, she murmured quickly, rushing for the stairs. I need to think. We let her leave. Sometimes the most generous thing you can do is provide space. Hours have passed. Delilah and I talked, truly talked, for the first time in weeks. Regarding worries and blunders. About Stella, Miles. About us. Around midnight, I was preparing to return to Ryan's when my phone lit up with a text from Stella. I messed up. Everything's messed up. Can we talk? I mean, really talk? Not about Miles or money or anything, just, remember when we used to have ice cream after my dancing classes and you'd let me rant about school drama? Could we do that? I know I don't deserve it, but I'm composing this from my car, which is parked outside our local ice cream shop. It's supposedly closed, but the owner recognizes us. We have been coming here for 3 years. He is staying open late just for us. Stella just arrived in her mother's automobile. She's sitting there, probably gathering up the nerve to enter. Exactly as I am. Sometimes the most difficult conversations begin with the slightest steps. Or, in this case, mint chocolate chip ice cream at midnight. Final update. That night in the ice cream shop altered everything. Stella spoke for hours. About Miles' manipulation. Her anxieties and guilt. But it was something she said in passing that piqued my interest. Miles had asked Jessica to get her friend's parents to invest in his firm as well. Something clicked. I remembered the lawsuits I'd discovered, a pattern of targeting families through their children. The rage I'd been hiding now had a purpose. You know, I explained carefully. What he's doing isn't simply ethically wrong. It is illegal. Stella glanced up from her melting ice cream. What do you mean? I described securities fraud and unlawful investment techniques. Her eyes widened as she took out her phone and showed me the group conversations where Miles was directly soliciting investments from children. That night, after sending Stella off, I made some phone calls. Quinn has a friend in the SEC. Ryan knows someone in the district attorney's office. By the morning, I had a plan. Miles didn't see it coming. He was too preoccupied with his big announcement dinner, where he intended to persuade Stella to hand over her education fund. He had also invited the parents of some of her friends, adding to the list of prospective targets. The dinner was held at an expensive restaurant. Miles was in his element, discussing Silicon Valley connections and assured profits. I waited for the appetizers to arrive before rising up. "Before we continue," I said, "there are some people who'd like to join us." On cue, 2 federal agents and a state investigator entered. Miles' face changed from confident to confused, to terrified, in seconds. Miles was operating more than one fraud, it seems out. The detectives discovered 7 different fraudulent schemes in 3 jurisdictions. Every time he reconnected with Stella over the years, he would set up new victims. The classic automobile dealership that cost Delilah her funds was part of a broader scam scheme. The food truck franchise follows the same pattern. But here's the beautiful part, he'd gotten sloppy this time. He had documented everything in texts and emails to Stella, believing she would never turn against him. When she forwarded the messages to the investigators, his fate was sealed. Are the parents present at the dinner? They wore wires. Every promise, lie, and illegal investment pitch was recorded. Miles tried to run, knocking over a waiter before sprinting for the door. He took 3 steps before being stopped by security. As they led him away, he gave Stella that manipulative puppy dog expression that she had fallen for so many times. "This is all a misunderstanding, sweetie. Tell them I am your father." Stella stood up, shoulders straight. "My father's right here," she said, taking my hand. "And he just watched you get exactly what you deserve." The aftermath was intense. News coverage, victim statements, more families are coming forward. The investigators discovered over $2.3 million in stolen funds. Miles estimates 15 to 20 years. His startup consisted solely of a website and some stolen photos of a real tech company's office. But the true victory was not witnessing Miles' arrest. It was the brief moments that followed. Stella placed all of her photos with Miles in a box and donated them to the prosecution. "Evidence," she said, with a hint of her old smile. She reapplied to her AP courses. In light of the circumstances, the school was understanding. Instead of being angry, her friends' parents formed a support group for families impacted by similar scams. Something good came from something bad. Stella asked me last night for help with her college essays. "I have a pretty unique story now," she explained. "How many people can write about bringing down their biological father's fraudulent empire? Delilah and I are in counseling. There is trust to rebuild and wounds to heal. But watching her meticulously place my photos back in the family albums and straighten each one, that expressed more than words could." Stella came down early this morning for breakfast. She carried an envelope with her. "I found this in my room," she explained, passing it across the table. "Miles asked me to send it last week. It is investment documentation for his startup. I figured you would want to add it to the evidence file." I stared at the envelope, then at her. "Do you want to deliver it to the investigators together?" She grinned, the genuine, unrestrained smile I had missed. "Can we get ice cream afterwards?" Some may argue that the vengeance was excessively severe. Whatever happens, that family is still family. However, a real family does not strive to take your future. A real family will protect you, even if it means shielding you from other relatives. Miles' sentencing date is next month. Stella plans to read a victim impact statement. She spent weeks working on it, painstakingly rewriting each word. She requested me to review it yesterday. "It needs a good ending," she went on. "Something that shows I'm not just his victim anymore." I believe she's already found that ending. It's in the way she holds her head up right now. In how she assists other children in identifying similar schemes. In the college brochures on her desk. Her actual route. Not the one Miles attempted to sell her. Moving on sometimes entails ensuring that the past does not harm others. And sometimes, the finest retribution isn't simply watching someone face consequences, it is thriving despite them. We are having a family meal tonight. Only the 3 of us. Stella's making her famous pasta sauce, which she learnt while watching cooking videos with me during lockdown. Normal, boring, and wonderful. Things related to the family. Miles will have plenty of time to ponder about these things from his cell. My wife called me, just a roommate, dismissing our marriage. But when I discovered her cheating, I made her leave the house for good. Hello everyone, before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's simple, free, and allows us to keep bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let us keep this channel growing collectively. Thank you very much. Now, let's begin the video. Okay, so 30 million, need to get this off my chest because things have completely gone wrong with my wife, Melissa, 28F. We've been married for 3 years and together for nearly 6. We first met in this bar through mutual friends. She wasn't supermodel hot, but she was obviously lovely and exuded a confident air that drew me in immediately. We hit it off, exchanged numbers, and began dating a few weeks later. The first couple years were actually pretty fantastic. We went on weekend getaways and met each other's families, as couples do. Her parents were a little standoffish, but whatever. We moved in together after a year. I proposed on our 2-year anniversary, and we married around 8 months later in a simple ceremony with family and close friends. I purchased a home around 6 months before the wedding. My name appears on everything since I paid the down payment with money I saved by working my ass off. For the first year of marriage, everything was well. We'd both come home from work, cook dinner together, and watch television, normal stuff. We discussed having children in a few years, but looking back, I noticed that things began to change around the 2nd year of our marriage. Melissa began to focus more on her work. She works in marketing and has started staying later at work, attending networking events, and spending less time at home. I was supportive because I thought it was good for her career. I took on extra domestic tasks so she could focus on her work. I also started paying most of the bills because she stated that she wanted to advance her job before focusing on money. It started out little, with her canceling our date evenings at the last minute due to work. She was constantly on her phone, even while we were meant to be spending time together. If I brought it up, she'd become defensive and suggest I wasn't supporting her profession. So I backed off. We stopped doing activities together on weekends. She was either too exhausted from work or had unexpected brunches and shopping outings with her pals, which I was not invited to. I began to feel as if we were simply existing in the same area without truly connecting. She told me a few months ago that her buddy group was planning a meal at a new restaurant downtown and invited me. I was genuinely surprised. She hadn't invited me to anything with her pals in months. I wasn't very excited because her buddies are largely marketing public relations professionals who only discuss work turmoil and gossip about people I don't know. But I assumed this was her way of including me more, so I went. We arrived at the restaurant and there were around 8 people in total. Melissa, me, and 6 of her friends. The room was crowded and noisy, and we ended up at this long table. I was around 3 seats away from Melissa, sandwiched between her buddy Taylor, who was chatting to someone else the entire time, and a guy I had never met before, who was addicted to his phone. Basically, I was simply sitting there sipping my soda, without participating in any conversation. No one spoke to me or even acknowledged my existence. To be honest, these things are rather usual. I was used to being the unseen husband by this point. I was spacing out, thinking about a job at work, when Melissa's friend Caitlin inquired, "So, how's married life treating you these days?" The way she stated it was strange, as if there was something underlying the question. That's when I focused on what Melissa was saying. Guys, I swear it felt like someone punched me in the stomach. Melissa snorted dismissively and replied, "Oh, please. He's just my roommate at this point. Only my roommate." I literally froze with my beer halfway to my mouth. Who is saying that about their husband? And the way she said it was not a joke. It was as if she were stating an obvious fact that everyone already knew. She even looked at me as she said it, noticing I was paying attention, but she didn't mind. What's worse? Her friends' reactions. They all laughed and nodded as if everything was perfectly normal. One of them even said, "Don't all husbands eventually become glorified roommates?" They all cracked up even more. All but one girl, Olivia. She's new to their friend group, I've only met her a few times. She did not laugh. Instead, she gave me a sympathetic gaze. At least one person in this group had a soul, I suppose. I can't remember the rest of the dinner talk. My brain was caught on loop, hearing my wife repeatedly refer to me as her roommate. I continued to eat and drink on autopilot, not saying anything but attempting to understand what had just transpired. The trouble is, she said it without looking at me. She didn't ask if I'd heard, and she didn't care, as if I wasn't even a factor in her life worth considering. Melissa was speaking about trivial topics on the way home, appearing entirely normal, while I sat there feeling as if my entire marriage had been nuked. I scarcely answered, only offering one-word answers and nods. When we arrived home, she plopped down on the couch and scrolled through Instagram like nothing had happened, as if she hadn't just completely degraded our entire relationship in front of all her pals. I stood there for a minute, waiting for her to say something, recognize what she said, apologize, anything. But nah. Nothing. That's when it occurred to me, perhaps this wasn't just a random comment. Maybe this is how she sees me? Just a man who stays in the same house and pays his bills. Not her spouse, not her partner, only her roommate. I couldn't keep it in anymore. So, am I really just your roommate now? I inquired, attempting to seem casual despite my feelings. Melissa looked up from her phone, angry to be interrupted. What are you talking about? At dinner, you told your friends I'm just your roommate at this point. She rolled her eyes and returned to scrolling. Oh my God, it was just a joke. Don't be so sensitive. That's just how we talk sometimes. Didn't sound like a joke, I said. Well, it was, she retorted. You're seriously overreacting. Can we not do this right now? I'm tired. And that was all. No apologies. There's no explanation. Not even acknowledging that it might have harmed me. Simply disregarding my feelings and making it appear as if I was at blame for being sad. I didn't want to exacerbate the situation because I was still trying to process everything. Plus, I wanted to consider how to approach this. But one thing was clear, something was badly wrong in our relationship, and I couldn't deny it any longer. The next morning, I followed my usual routine on autopilot. Melissa was hurrying around as usual, barely addressing me, except to inquire whether I had seen her phone charger. It was just another routine day for her. As I drove to work, I kept revisiting that moment from supper in my thoughts. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. I've worked hard for years to construct a life with this woman. I purchased the house we live in. I pay the majority of the bills. I've been assisting her career by taking on additional domestic tasks. I've been the one who has put the most effort into our connection. Meanwhile, she has been doing what? Going out with pals? Working late? Paying little attention to me? And this is how she views me? Just a guy who happens to reside in the same house? By the time I arrived at work, I had made a decision. If Melissa prefers a roommate above a husband, she will get one. During my lunch break, I opened a new bank account and transferred the majority of our money from our joint account to it. I only left enough to meet my portion of the bills for the month, not a penny more. I used to pay 80% of everything because I earned more. But roommates split the bill 50-50, right? When I went home that evening, I didn't ask Melissa about her day as I usually would. I did not inform her about my. I simply said hey, and went directly to the spare room where I keep my gaming gear. Usually, I'd wait for her to complete work before we decided on dinner. But not tonight. I ordered a pizza just for myself. When it arrived, I took a few slices and returned to my game. Melissa entered the room a few minutes later, bewildered. Did you order pizza? Where's mine? I shrugged, still staring at my tablet. Oh, I just ordered for myself. Figured you'd get something if you were hungry. She waited there for a second, hoping for a more detailed explanation. When I said nothing else, she just murmured, okay, and exited the room. A bit later, I heard her in the kitchen preparing something. That marked the beginning of what I now call Operation Roommate. Over the next few weeks, I gradually changed how I interacted with Melissa. I stopped texting her during the day to check in. I stopped getting groceries for her. I stopped washing her clothes with mine. I stopped asking whether she needed anything when I went shopping. I stopped telling her when I was going out or when I would return home. I stopped cooking dinner for both of us. Essentially, I stopped doing all the husband's things and began acting like we were just two people sharing a shared space, like housemates. Melissa didn't appear to notice right away. Or if she did, she said nothing. She still went out a lot. Still working late. Even when she was at home, she was glued to her phone. However, after approximately a week, things began to alter. One night, she came home, opened the fridge, and gave me an irritated expression. Melissa's buddy was the only one who appeared uncomfortable when Melissa introduced me as her roommate at supper. Hey, Jake, right? She said, walking over. Melissa's husband? I nodded. Yeah, hey, Olivia. She grinned, surprised. I remember your name. Good memory. Didn't know you came here every morning. Their coffee is better than the office stuff. There was an awkward moment. I could sense she wanted to say something but was unsure whether she should. Finally, she stated, I've been trying to contact out. Melissa's comments at the dinner a few weeks earlier were inappropriate. I simply wanted you to know that not everyone felt it was hilarious. I was surprised that someone acknowledged it. Thanks, I appreciate that. Are you all okay? I mean, it's not my business. I shrugged. We're figuring things out. No way was I going to put my marital issues on someone I barely knew, even if she appeared pleasant. Olivia nodded. Well, I hope everything works out. For what it's worth, I think you seem like a gentleman. This made me grin for the first time in weeks. Thanks, Olivia. We ended up sitting together for about 15 minutes, just talking, and it turns out she's actually pretty cool. She works as a physical therapist, arrived to the city about 6 months ago, and met Melissa and her group through a common friend. She was easy to talk to, and it felt good to have a real conversation with someone who actually cared about what I had to say. She hesitated before saying, "Look, I know this might be weird, but if you ever need someone to talk to, here's my number." She scrawled it on a napkin and gave it to me. I honestly felt it was a bit strange, like crossing a line. I didn't know precisely what her aim was, but I thought I could use some aid. It also appeared like she was just being polite. "Thanks," I replied, slipping it into my pocket. "I might take you up on that." A few days later, I was having an especially frustrating day. Melissa had become increasingly irritated by the roommate situation, grumbling about having to contribute more to bills and calling me juvenile. Then, I discovered that someone had used our joint credit card, which I believed had been revoked but evidently wasn't, to purchase a $500 purse. 3 guesses who? I was sitting in my car in the office parking lot, angry, when I remembered Olivia's phone number and decided to call her. Perhaps she knew what Melissa was doing. So I messaged her. "Hey, this is Jake. Is the offer to chat still open?" She replied almost instantly. "Absolutely. Is everything okay?" We met for coffee after work. I didn't intend to dump everything on her, but staring into her huge, warm eyes, it all came out. The roommate joke, how Melissa had been distant for months, and how I'd initiated Operation Roommate. All of it. Olivia simply listened, asking occasional questions rather than passing judgment. When I finished, she sighed. "I don't know Melissa very well, but based on what I've seen in the group, she talks about you differently when you aren't present." My stomach plummeted. "How come?" Olivia expressed discomfort, saying, "She complains a lot and says you're boring. She feels stuck." Wow. I wasn't sure what else to say. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said anything." "No, I appreciate your honesty. Seriously." Before we went, she touched my arm. "Jake, you deserve someone who's proud to be with you, not someone who treats you like an inconvenience." That hit me hard, because she was correct. For the first time, I saw Olivia. Not simply as Melissa's friend. Not just as someone who happens to be present. But as someone who observed me, who saw the cracks before I even acknowledged they existed. We began messaging after that. It was just regular conversation, how the day went, little annoyances, inside jokes, but it seemed different. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't just talking to fill the silence. Someone wanted to hear what I had to say. No sighing. No eye rolls. Just a real chat with someone who cares. And man, I didn't realize how much I missed it till I got it back. Of course, Melissa didn't notice. She was too caught up in her own world, going out many nights a week with business pals, getting home late, and smelling like cologne that wasn't mine. I was not foolish. I knew where this was going, but I wanted proof before making my next step. Now, let me be clear. I'm not the suspicious kind. Really, I am not. I've been cheated on before, back in college, and I promised myself I wouldn't be that anxious partner who constantly checks phones. However, there is a distinction between being paranoid and just connecting obvious dots. Melissa was displaying all the traditional signs. Staying out late. She is being clandestine with her phone. I suddenly made new work buddies that I had never met before. Getting suited for office meetings. The cologne fragrance. I mean, come on. I needed to know for sure. The setup first, I attempted a straightforward approach. "So, who is this new work friend you have been spending so much time with?" I asked casually one morning. Melissa barely glanced up from her phone. "What?" "Oh, simply members of the marketing staff. No one is interesting. Seems like you're with them a lot lately." She rolled her eyes. "What are you doing with my schedule now?" She then smirked and created air quotes with her fingers. "I thought we were only roommates." I merely shrugged and walked away. "Just making conversation," I said. It was clear that the straight approach would not work. So I made a decision that some people may condemn me for. But, whatever. I purchased an AirTag. If you're unfamiliar with the term, it refers to a little tracking gadget manufactured by Apple. You're intended to use it to find your keys or baggage, but people also use it for other purposes. I waited for a morning when Melissa was still asleep. Her automobile keys were on the counter, as usual. I quickly took them, inserted the AirTag into a little compartment in the center console, where she stores spare cash and receipts, and returned the keys. The whole thing took about 30 seconds. The truth comes out. Melissa texted the next day, stating she'd be working late again and asked not to wait. The timing was ideal for testing my new setup. Around 6 p.m., I launched the Find My app on my phone to verify the AirTag's location. It showed that her automobile was on the move. I watched her drive, not toward her downtown workplace. But I'm going to a luxury apartment complex on the city's north side. Her automobile came to a stop about 6:45 p.m. My heart pounded. Part of me hoped for an innocent explanation, like a friend living there or a work event, but deep down I knew. I watched her movements for 3 days and discovered a clear pattern. Tuesday, she told me she was having dinner with co-workers. Her car was at the same apartment complex from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. Thursday, she said she had a client meeting. Car was at the apartment complex from 6:30 p.m. to nearly midnight. Throughout all of this, I texted Olivia, not telling her what I was doing, but screaming about Melissa's blatant lies. Olivia was supportive but cautious. "Are you certain you want to know?" She texted. "Sometimes, finding out only makes things worse." "I need to know," I told him. "I'm tired of being played for a fool." The following Tuesday, when Melissa stated she had another late meeting, I told her I was going to grab drinks with some guys from work and wouldn't be home till late, which was obviously a lie. Instead, I parked down the street from the apartment complex and waited. Melissa's car arrived at 6:30 p.m., and I watched as she parked, checked her cosmetics in the mirror, got out, and walked to one of the buildings, typing a code at the door and entering. I sat there for maybe 15 minutes, debating what to do next. Part of me wanted to storm in, catch them in the act, and make a big scene, but what would that accomplish? More drama? No thanks. Instead, I took pictures of her car in the lot and the building she entered, then took a deep breath and drove home. Melissa was cheating on me, and now I had all the proof I needed. The question was, what was I going to do about it? I called Olivia on the way home, and when she answered, I simply stated, "You were right about everything." "Oh, Jake," she whispered softly. "I am so sorry. What are you planning to do?" "I don't know yet," I told her. "But I'm done being just her roommate." I slept in the spare room that night, and Melissa didn't notice I wasn't in our bed when she arrived home after midnight. The following day, I called in ill to work because I couldn't concentrate on spreadsheets and meetings when my marriage was collapsing. I spent the morning researching divorce lawyers and found one with positive reviews who could see me that afternoon. When I got down with him, I explained everything: the roommate comment, the infidelity, the housing issue, and our money. "So, what am I looking at here?" I inquired after explaining everything. The lawyer leaned back in his chair and said, "Well, you're in a fairly solid legal position. The house is in your name, and you owned it before marriage, therefore it is probably protected. Having no children simplifies things. Virginia is not a no-fault state, thus her adultery could benefit you. The important question is, how contentious do you want this to be?" I considered it. "I don't want drama. I just want out." The lawyer smirked. "You're a smart man. Those who want vengeance end up paying me a lot more money." He then gave me a knowing glance. "Let's start drafting the paperwork. Meanwhile, document everything. Her absences, evidence of the affair, and financial documents. And don't tell her you're filing until we're prepared." I paid his retainer and departed feeling lighter, as if I'd finally taken control of the problem. When I arrived home, Olivia texted me. "How are you doing?" I proposed we meet for coffee, and she accepted. We met at a quiet small area a few towns away, where Melissa's pals wouldn't notice us. Olivia looked troubled when she saw me. "You look exhausted," she remarked. "Haven't been sleeping much," I admitted, absently stirring my coffee. "I met with a divorce lawyer today." Her eyes widened. "Wow, that was fast." Once I learned for certain about the cheating, it wasn't a difficult decision. Our marriage has been dead for several months. She nodded. "I understand, but it's still a big step." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand, a swift, encouraging gesture that seemed more genuine than any contact I'd had from Melissa in months. "What happens now?" she asked. "A lawyer is preparing the papers. I am gathering evidence. Then I serve her and ask her to go." "She's not going to like that." I shrugged. "Tough." She should have considered that before cheating on me. We talked for nearly 2 hours, not only about the divorce but about everything: our careers, kids, favorite movies, and vacation adventures. It was so easy to chat to Olivia. There was no judgment, no stress, just two individuals who were truly interested in what the other had to say. When we eventually said our goodbyes, she hugged me and whispered, "You'll be fine, Jake. Better than okay." For the first time in weeks, I truly believed it. Over the next few days, I kept gathering evidence, taking screenshots of our bank statements proving I paid for everything, downloading records of Melissa's credit card charges, fancy restaurants I never went to, hotel charges on nights she was supposed to be with friends, and backing up her AirTag location history. Put everything in a folder for my lawyer, Richard. Melissa, on the other hand, was entirely unconcerned, continuing with her usual schedule of getting home late, barely speaking to me, and spending weekends with friends. The arrogance of it all only increased my determination. Olivia and I texted every day at that time. Nothing untoward happened, and I was not going to be a cheater like Melissa. What about Olivia? She was the first person in a long time who genuinely cared about me. And I wasn't going to be a cheater, but we were definitely getting closer. She told me about her previous relationships, her difficult family, and I opened up about things I hadn't told anyone in years. She made me laugh when I didn't think I could, and I thought it was nice to have someone supportive through all of this. The divorce papers were ready a week later, and the lawyer suggested that Melissa be served unexpectedly, preferably with a witness present. You want someone there who can verify how it went down, he told me. Especially if she gets emotional or makes threats. Well, without thinking twice, I requested Olivia to be my witness. She consented quickly. I'll be there, she texted, whatever you need. I chose the date for Friday night, knowing Melissa would be home. It was time to end this farce of a marriage once and for all. Friday arrived faster than I expected, and I spent the morning going over the plan with the lawyer, making sure I understood exactly what to say and how to handle various circumstances. He handed me the divorce papers in a manila envelope that felt far too light for something so significant. Olivia sent me supportive texts throughout the day. You can do this? Stay strong. I'll be there. Simple words, but they were helpful. We decided to meet at a coffee shop near my house at 6 p.m. Melissa normally arrived home around 7 p.m. on Fridays, when she wasn't going straight to her jerk's place, and the plan was for Olivia to come over around 6:30, after which we'd wait for Melissa together. We remained there for a while, not really drinking our coffees, just passing the time, and at 6:25, we drove to my house. Olivia's automobile was far finer than I expected, a luxury SUV that must have cost a fortune. We came into the house, and I paused for a moment. It seemed strange having Olivia, Melissa's old friend, in our space. Except it wasn't our space anymore, and Olivia wasn't Melissa's friend anymore. I gave her a quick tour, pointing out different objects to break the stillness. She grinned, that little knowing smile. You don't have to give me the real estate agent walkthrough, Jake. I'm only here for moral support. I chuckled and rubbed the back of my neck. Yeah, guess I'm just not accustomed to, someone truly wants to be here. She angled her head, as if she were reading between the lines, and then, as we came to a halt in the living room, she reached out and adjusted my shirt collar, smoothing it down with a slight touch as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I froze. But the way she did it, so familiar and casual, made my gut knot. It had been a long time since someone touched me with affection rather than obligation. There, she whispered, her fingertips lingering for just a second too long before she stepped back. You're all set. I gulped and tried to ignore the heat rising up my neck. Thanks. She just smirked and plopped down on the couch, as if she had always belonged there. Anytime. And just like that, I started seeing Olivia in a way I hadn't before. Around 7:10, I heard Melissa's car pull into the driveway. Olivia and I were sitting in the living room, the divorce papers neatly put out on the coffee table waiting. Everything was in place. The front door opened, and Melissa walked in as casually as ever, taking a few steps before she noticed us. Then halted, her eyes shifting from me to Olivia and back again. What is going on? She asked, her tone already defensive. Why is she here? I stood up and said, We need to talk, Melissa. Her gaze clouded as she glanced at Olivia once more. Why is she here for that? This is our house. She's here as a witness, I added, picking up the envelope and allowing her to sense the gravity of the situation before passing it over. Melissa folded her arms. A witness to what? I handed her the paperwork and said, I'm filing for divorce. The way her expression plummeted was priceless, as if her brain had short-circuited and was fumbling for an answer. Divorce? She echoed. She scoffed, as if grasping at straws. Are you serious? Are you over your little roommate tantrum? No, I answered, unshaken. Because you're cheating on me, and have been for months. She gave out a sharp, forced laugh. That's ridiculous. I am not cheating on you. Don't, I interrupted her performance. I know about the guy at the Parkview Apartments. I know how frequently you're there. Her face lost its color. Did you follow me? What the hell, Jake? I shook my head, amused by how fast she transferred the blame. I didn't need to. I tapped my phone. I have weeks of proof. Every late night. Every business function. Every ladies' night out. All leading to the same place. Her eyes shifted to Olivia, then back to me, and her shock turned into rage. Did you trace me? That is crazy. She then pointed toward Olivia, spitting the words as if they would burn. So you brought her here for this? She had been yearning for this moment since the day she met you. Olivia did not react. She did not have to. I wasn't going to let Melissa change the script. Olivia has nothing to do with this, I said with confidence. This is about you, your choices, and the fact that you got caught. Melissa's arms tightened across her chest, shifting gears. So I botched up. Jake, sometimes people make mistakes. That doesn't mean we throw everything away. Her voice softened and her gaze focused on mine. We can repair this. Counseling, a fresh start, I'll stop seeing him. Let's talk about it alone. She gave Olivia a stare as if she could remove her from the room. That was when I twisted the knife. I leaned back and gave her the same blank stare she'd given me so many times. Why are you upset anyway? I inquired, my tone tinged with contempt. I'm just your roommate, right? That's what you wanted. She scoffed and rolled her eyes, as if I were the one being ridiculous. That? You're still mad about that, Jake? It was a joke. I nodded as if I had finally understood her argument. Oh, right. It was a joke. Hilarious. I tilted my head. Wait, so you do joke about replacing your husband with another guy? Just checking. Her jaw tightened, but I was not finished. You were right though, I said, my voice silky. We're just roommates, and since I'm the one paying the majority of the rent, I motioned toward the door. Yeah, I'm going to need you to pack up and get the hell out of my house. She totally lost it. I started crying, screaming, throwing things, the works. He called me every name in the book, then went begging, and then back to fury. Classic manipulative tactics may have worked on me in the past, but not longer. Where am I supposed to go? She asked repeatedly, as if it were my responsibility to fix. I shrugged. I don't know. Maybe your boyfriend's place. You seem to spend enough time there already. That just made her angrier. She eventually stormed out, slamming the door so forcefully that a picture tumbled from the wall. Olivia assisted me in cleaning up the mess Melissa had left behind. That went about as well as expected, I said, attempting a joke. Olivia offered me a compassionate grin. You did great. Stood your ground. Melissa returned the next day with her friend Taylor, intending to simply move back in like nothing had happened. I'd replaced the locks. They were stuck outside, calling my phone and knocking on the door. I didn't respond, instead texting her that she could come grab her belongings on Saturday, when I'd have my brother with me. That Saturday was tense. My brother Mike arrived early, which was fortunate given that Melissa arrived with Taylor and her father.